whenever Sunday comes in, she can just pop in. That's not a big deal.
So will we see the comments on this?
No, but I have it set up to where I can actually read them, so I will do a better job of reading them. Grayson, or I'm going to call you Grayson a lot. I'm sorry. Graydon has just pulled it up. He's on his phone, and he just pulled it up on his computer. I mean, you could do the same thing, but in the opposite. Since you're on your computer, just pull it up on your phone, and then read the comments that way if you want. Yeah. Or you can just trust that I'll read them. I'll try.
Sometimes it doesn't help to read the comments, I would imagine, right?
Sometimes you just ignore them, yeah. But anyway, that was the hope, at least, was just like showing that it's possible to have a conversation about even stuff you don't agree on. Like, you know, even stuff that you don't necessarily agree is even plausible. It's easy to have a conversation about it without.
I think you just have to be objective, right? I mean, take the clues for, you know, their face value and see how it works.
I think you also kind of have to put yourself in whoever presenting them's frame of mind in order to.
I mean, if it's Andy, you have a little bit of, you know, he's not just anybody coming up with clues. So,
yeah. So you don't know anything about Ralph Bunche Park, about Andy's ideas?
No, I mean, I've heard people talk about the UN, but in that area up there, isn't there like a that's around what is it?
42nd Street.
Yeah, the
very end.
But performing, what is it called? Not Carnegie Hall. Is it Carnegie Hall? Is that right there?
This is the Tudor City Bridge. I don't think Carnegie Hall is right there. No. Is it? Is you know the steps dedicated to the guy that the book's dedicated to? Is the Isaiah Wall? No.
Book?
Yeah, the book, The Secret.
The book is dedicated to The Secret. Dedicated.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go. So there's this park.
Strong start.
There's this park in New York.
Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
It's called Ralph Bunche Park. Now let me give you some coincidences. All right. Just some coincidences for you to know before we get into this conversation. Ralph Bunche Park, Bunche.
Okay.
Ralph Bunche Park has this wall in it called the Isaiah Wall, right? And it's got a set of stairs that are called the Sharansky steps. They are named after the same Sharansky that the book The Secret is dedicated to. He was a Russian Jewish something. I don't remember. So anyway, these steps are dedicated to that guy. They were dedicated by, let me pull up my email here. So I can read you the exact name of this organization because it's weird. The Greater New York Conference on Soviet Jewry. That's who named this park. Yeah, that's the thing. And they are an offshoot of the United Jewish Appeal Federation, which is the organization that Byron was really heavily that's who still does his children's fund.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They were dedicated in 1981, I think. There was a fight to have them dedicated to Sharansky, and then they were ultimately dedicated in 1981. There's a lot of cool little stuff that's coincidental. Like Graydon was pointing out, there is a big ass statue right in this park that resembles that gray building that's in the painting. If you pull it up, or you pull it up on Google Maps or Google Earth.
Yeah.
Figured you'd want to take a look.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the UN building itself, actually, too.
Yeah, you're talking about the gray rectangle?
Yeah.
Yeah, once you turn around from that, you'll see the statue. You look back into the park.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just a giant gray rectangle.
Is that like an obelisk almost?
Kind of.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Which Graydon just pointed that out. I didn't even.
How long has that been there? Forever?
Seven-
1980.
1980. Yeah.
That's
So
what
all
we're-
of this was basically done in 1980. This whole park was done about 1980.
Wow. So that would have been brand new.
Yeah. It would have been under construction when this thing was, being planned, like a lot of the other parks.
So does Andy have a walkthrough where it, the verse clues?
So Andy does.
Or,
Andy doesn't even really
and theme and stuff,
Andy doesn't even really buy this idea anymore. I think he's more on Coney Island like most everybody else. When I saw it, I thought it was interesting, and it was an interesting way of like looking at the puzzle differently. Andy did have a walkthrough, and it was like kind of weak in the beginning and got stronger towards the end. I mean, once you're looking at steps and you're at a staircase, it's not that difficult to walk up twice as many steps as the hour and look down and see anything, because you're high up.
I mean, I'm just wondering like where you get to dig right there. There's like landscaped area right there on First Avenue.
Well, I mean, once you walk up those steps, there's nothing but a giant patch of grass below you.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that would have to do with a Rhapsodic Man's soil. I don't know what it would have to do with anything. It's just, I mean, those steps legitimately, once you go up them and you look down on the other side of the wall, it's just dirt. I mean, you could go up there, count the steps, look straight down, and have an exact spot right up against the wall.
But that's the plan for today, right? So George is to let's look at all those possibilities. I think what you're wanting to do today is to kind of demonstrate how like a group of people can look at one idea and just stay on topic and explore it in a kind of an open, constructive way, right? So,
yeah.
We don't have to structure how we do this, but so like if you're saying, I don't know how that would relate to Rhapsodic Man's soil. I wondered about that too when you sent this to me. Like, do you think that the connection to Rhapsodic Man in this particular instance is 42nd Street itself?
Well, I mean, it would have to be something with a composer, right? Like if you're staying by the Japanese hints, it would have to be a composer of some sort, right? It would have to be someone related to music.
So Gershwin often like is used for people who are in Brooklyn as the way to get there. But I mean, if you look up his career, there are different like points in his career, and one of those like post Tin Pan Alley periods had a lot to do with music written for musicals. So if you're going to be talking about musicals at the time, I mean, 42nd Street is known as, well, there's a musical called 42nd Street.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. All right.
Is that him too?
Who did 42nd Street?
That's
no,
what I'm looking it up.
It's not him. Not him. I checked that out, but I think because that's when I kind of just looked at this and thought, well, what are these potential connections? I don't think it's a super strong connection, but it is.
But it's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
I mean, if it was his.
I mean, 42nd Street came out in 1980, though.
The musical?
That's what it said. 42nd Street is a 1980 stage musical with book by Michael Stewart, Mark Ramble, lyrics by Al Durbin.
I thought it was further, composer. But it's not the musical 42nd Street that would be the connection. 42nd Street
about the song?
musical. No, the musical 42nd Street is like an homage to like musical culture in New York. So like 42nd Street is where a lot of the Broadway theaters, like 42nd Street runs all the way to Times Square and to Broadway, right?
There was
a lot of theaters.
That was at when I was growing up in New York. I remember those commercials for that Broadway show, 42nd Street.
Yeah.
So for years,
those dancing feet on the avenue, I'm taking you to 42nd Street. That was like continually on television.
But if that was well known in New York, it was well known with people in general.
For sure.
Even just 42nd Street is the musical street or the theater street.
Yeah, but I don't know that the Gershwin connection is that solid, in my opinion.
Does it have to be Gershwin?
Yes,
I think so.
Gershwin,
I don't want to slip too far away from like.
I don't disagree with you, but let's devil's advocate. Let me look at the Japanese.
I mean, there's a point of being objective, and there's just a point of like reaching to try and make something.
I just found something else. So from earlier, I remember about Gershwin's career. He worked for the Aeolian Company, a publishing company, and the Aeolian building was on 42nd Street.
Okay. That would be Gershwin soil.
Okay, so it does say that. Think of a famous song with the word rhapsodics. The man who wrote that song. Okay, never mind.
Check.
Well,
or that's an X actually.
Yeah, so the Aeolian building is really close to Bryant Park, actually.
Ooh,
George. So if you're doing your walk along 42nd, I won't spoil it for you because I know you want to talk about the different squares in the painting.
No, I mean, it's fine.
If you're looking at a path from Times Square to the UN building, you're passing right by that.
I mean, that's kind of what 42nd Street is.
So you're talking Great Giant is the Empire State Building?
No. I don't really. So, okay, here's the, I don't know if I said that. I don't buy this idea at all. Right. Andy just, I was thinking about Andy's idea, and let me open up another Google. Sorry. I was thinking about Andy's idea, and I was thinking about the squares in the painting, right? I was thinking about how, like, we don't really know what the squares in the painting are, except for one of them. We have a pretty good idea, right? We have a good idea that Times Square is the far right painting, right? And that's taken for granted, and it's kind of obvious now, but it's a bit of a puzzle in and of itself, right? It's a square with a clock in it equals Times Square. That's a little mini puzzle. But what if the rest of the puzzle, or what if the rest of the blocks are kind of like that? The rest of the squares are kind of like little mini puzzles. Like we constantly look for a match for that church, but what if it's not a church at all? What if it's just telling you there's some sort of religious connection to that square, right? We know this is a Russian puzzle, so we shoehorn in some Russian Orthodox church, but it's just telling you
George,
either Russian or religious.
Let me ask you have a little bit more knowledge on, like, when at the end of the printing process, when he decided he needed to put that in, that one element was screened in after the fact. It wasn't painted into the image. It was
not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it was screened in after the fact.
So do you know anything, like, was it intended to have something there, or was it intended to be blank?
I don't know the answer to that question.
If it was intended to be blank, I think that's a pretty heavy clue for something.
The only thing that I think John's ever said about it was if Byron put it in there, it's important. And that was about that church specifically
being important.
Yeah, but why are they important? Is it a very specific thing? Like, we've been looking for years, we've never found this specific church.
Well, I think the general consensus is that there's really nothing Russian in the image that speaks to that immigration,
except that. Yeah. So did he just find an onion dome? Like, you would see that and automatically think Russian. I think we could all agree on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So he just found it
from New York. You'd say 100%.
We know the completion of this painting was very rushed, though, right?
Yeah, very rushed. So we also don't know if there was intended to be something in there, and he just didn't have time. Like, because
this was the last one.
It had to be, because even the background's not done in this one. And there's still tape on it, for God's sakes.
It must have been started, and maybe it was rehashed or refinished, because the other ones seemingly that were finished towards the end were the smaller 11 by 17 formats, correct?
This one's pretty small. This one's no bigger than San Francisco. It's the same size.
But that's not cut out. Larger. But that's still larger than, say, New Orleans or.
It's about the size of St. Augustine.
That's 11 by 17.
It's maybe slight, because it's got that arch at the top of San Francisco. That makes it a little taller. But it's like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using my hands. You can't tell.
Yeah.
It's not much bigger than St. Augustine.
Well, I'm just.
It's
coming
definitely
from the,
not like.
the
It's
angle
definitely
that
not like Montreal or anything. It's not those.
No, I'm just coming from the angle that he made those choices to include things for some reason, and if there was a rush to finish things, or from JJP's, perspective, he had worked on things and maybe they decided to change something. It just seems like you can see it. It's rushed. There's partial. I mean, if you look at the photographs, you can definitely see there's like tape.
Yeah,
on the
there's
borders.
Definitely tape.
And there's smudges and brush strokes that are pretty crusty, and so that lends itself to being rushed or not being
finished at all.
Finished. Yeah.
Maybe
there were other concepts that were intended, but
I think we're letting our time frame of these timeline of these paintings hinder us a little bit, because like we know from what John has said about the order he completed the paintings versus the dates that are on the paintings, that can't necessarily be true, because isn't San Francisco, San Francisco's dedicated like 81.
San Francisco's but New York is also 81 also.
81, but which so wasn't it Cleveland that was 82? One of them's 82. One of the ones that was already solved was 82.
I'd have to look at my pictures.
But it's like it. You have to ask, like, so I can't imagine
the fact that like the cells, the squares, the boxes, whatever they are, they're representative of something, whether that's a rebus for each one or whether they're a one-to-one representation of something else that is like landmarks or things around, or I don't know. Those are questions yet to be figured out.
Yet to be asked. But you would have to think, like, so there's a bunch of things in this painting. Like, we could agree that eagle is accurately represents one of two things, probably. The Chrysler Building or Ellis Island. And Ellis Island is real damn close. And then you've got Times Square, and you've got the Statue of Liberty. And neither of those things are in the same vicinity as each other. Neither of them are on the same path as each other. And not all three of them can just be like, this is New York. You really only need one of those. So the others would have to be important for something, right? So I think what Andy put together was
the top three are representative of something on their own, like that's one thing together.
Yeah. What Andy proposed sort of was a puzzle, right? If you start at 42nd Avenue at Times Square, or was it 40? It was 42nd Street. Sorry. At Times Square, you get, you go through several blocks until there's one you have to go around, which is Bryant Park.
Yeah.
Then you have this eagle that could represent Chrysler Building, which you have to pass. Yeah. The eagle is pointing at something. Like none of these statues have legs like that eagle has. In fact, those legs don't even make sense. They're seagull legs, for God's sake. They're not even eagle talons. They don't match this bird at all, right? They have to point at something. This painting really only has details. The figure really only has details on her right. Her left is pretty sparse. It's pretty blank, But on her right, there is in the sleeve what Andy said was the shadow of the letters UN. So it was like the talons were pointing directly at the UN. And then you would get to this giant, you would continue down 42nd until you get to this giant square, which Graydon abruptly pointed out could very much be that obelisk.
Or the eagle's flying east, and so you're traveling east along.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that people have.
I'm in the camp that there is metaphors that JJP painted that are telling and showing and representing what it is that we're looking at. So it's tough for me to explain, but like they're almost like a rebus. Like this is what we're looking at. This is what we have to see, but it's interpreting.
So I started thinking about Andy's. Started thinking about because Andy really didn't go into the verse that much, and I started thinking about the verse in regards to Andy's sort of idea at this park. And I came up with a bunch of, shit that I really don't buy, but whatever. Like in the shadow of the gray giant, we can argue all day long about what the gray giant is, but there's only one thing in New York that's famous for being big and gray, and it's the Gray Lady, right? It's the Times.
New York Times.
So you start at the Times building, which is a block away from 42nd, I think. Like it's visible 42nd. Block away from 42nd Times Square. Start at the Gray Giant, find the arm that extends over the slender path. Well, we've been looking for a physical thing that we could consider an arm, right? We've been looking for a pathway that extends over another pathway. But what if it's just legitimately the arm in the painting that's extending over a slender path? There's only one arm in this painting that's extended over something, and it's extended over the stem of this flower, which is a slender, straight ass path. If you were to consider it like that, then I got nothing. I mean, using that to go down 42nd Street for the rest of it until you get to take twice as many steps of east as the hour, I got nothing. But it was just interesting.
It's hard to riff on this without having proper thought. I mean, it's like you're trying to come.
You're trying to come up with shit on, yeah.
Ideas.
But that's what discussion
is. I'm still
is.
Personally, I know, but I'm still, you get your biases and your thoughts about how things are working. So you have to. That's why I was asking earlier. Like if you feel like there's a travel path, if there's a step, there's a landmark. Like we're talking about with the bird and Bryant Park and 42nd Street. Travel across. I know, but I really feel like in order for this to be taken seriously, it has to hit some marks.
Well, the point
kind of.
So no, here.
Like it could. I think it'll work.
I think you're missing the point of this discussion. So the point of this discussion is illustrated in the comments that we're having right now. If you post any of your ideas online or with anybody really on Discord or on Facebook or on Reddit or wherever, what's the first thing? Like if you were to say, I think the waves represent Surf Avenue in Coney Island. If you were to say that, what's the first comment you're going to get? Somebody's going to be like, no, dumbass, it's Surf Avenue, over next to this park, or it's just crashing water for.
I think you can agree that you can take something as, whether you think it's fitting into the realm of possibility or whether you're just throwing something from left field.
I agree with that, but
wrench things together. Yeah, Surf Avenue 1-to-1 that works.
But I agree with you. But
and that's what I'm saying.
What does that help? What does that help? So we're talking about these squares as if they're individual puzzles, and people in the comments are like, "It's a colorblind test." What does that help? What does that help the conversation? Like if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're just yelling your ideas back at them, how does that help change their mind? How does that help move them forward in the puzzle? So my goal was to take this shit probably none of us agree with. Now let's just talk about it. What could you get that's good?
I just feel like if you're going to present some evidence, you've got to have some sticky evidence.
What is evidence?
It's
not about presenting.
Let's back up. Let's back up 1 second. So Graydon talked about 42nd Street, the musical, and you play that out. Okay, yeah, that's a possibility that Gershwin is a composer, and so that through line of it's a possibility that the through line of Gershwin being associated with 42nd Street because he's a composer, and that 42nd Street is
that's not what he was saying.
Rob, no, it was. But then I Googled a couple of things just now while you guys were talking. And you know what I discovered? Rhapsody in Blue was premiered at the Aeolian Theater on 42nd Street.
See, now that's something different. There you go.
Yeah, but the point of this conversation is if we come in with everything that we've already researched and know and our biases and are immediately trying to impose that on a conversation, we prevent ourselves from discovering.
I understand, and I'm trying to be objective about that, but I'm just saying whatever the evidence is that's being presented, it has to have some stickiness to it. It has to have some legs to it. It has to have some teeth to it, and that does.
But who's to judge? Because let's be brutally honest, when that dude on Reddit came out and was like, I'm looking in this baseball field in Boston, everybody called him an idiot. Nobody looked into it because everybody had their own ideas. Like it had to be in Charlesgate, you know? So,
I mean, it's a matter of being objective, but you have to be presented with evidence that rationally you can say, yes, there's a connection. There's a plausible connection. And of course you have to set your biases aside, which, I mean, each one of us is probably a little bit difficult to do, but still, in order to be objective, to me, there still needs to be the thread line, the possibility of it being a true statement. And it's not something that you can take 2 or 3 tiers of steps to get the connection. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not poo-pooing the idea. I'm just walking through logically how it needs to work in my mind.
Yeah,
and I'll reiterate again, like, I think the painting physically represents what we're supposed to be looking at the dig site.
Well, then you got to figure out a place where you can see either Ellis Island or the Chrysler Building and the Statue of Liberty and Times Square in the same spot. Because those are the 3 most obvious things. I mean, and in order to fit your idea, New York is impossible because there's nowhere to do that.
You're also like, you're too many steps ahead because this isn't being presented as a solved theory. This is being presented as an area of discussion.
Yeah, so, it's bits of evidence.
Ultimately, yes. If I'm going to book a plane ticket to go to New York to dig somewhere, yeah, I'm going to need to get to a point where I'm what you're talking about. But I think one of the biggest problems in the community is that people jump to their end game and don't allow open discussion about something because we're jumping too far. Like George isn't saying none of us are necessarily believing that this theory is true. I just found out about this 2 days ago. I'm not even a New York expert. New York is probably my least studied puzzle, but it's been an interesting couple of days looking up stuff, and it still is interesting because I'm finding things in the moment that I'm learning about in the puzzle. So it's like a thought experiment. It's an exercise in, can you put some people together who have different knowledge and different experience, and can you just throw stuff out there together to discover some things? Like who knows what you'll learn in that process? Because I was telling George earlier, my biggest pet peeve in the community is when someone posts something about a topic and everyone jumps in with things that have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not. If someone's posting about something, if you don't have something to say that relates to that, then don't jump in and say what your idea is. It's because it's not that the people don't care what your idea is. It's not that
you're hijacking the post
wrong. It's just unproductive. Like
just
stay on topic. Like,
I mean,
just
what
put
good
aside your solve for a second and explore a new idea.
What good does it do if everybody just yells their ideas at each other? You know?
Well, then it
doesn't do anything at all.
So now all the people who might have read that post and had something to say are now distracted in the weeds by someone who said something completely different, and the whole point of the initial post is lost. So
I mean, I get
like, can I just
I think you're right, of course, and I think that minutia of what may be different from what's previously discussed, that one little thing that little nugget that you're finding, that gets tossed aside, and then I'm going to talk about, my match does this, and then the post becomes something completely different, and then nobody has a discussion on what that one little nugget was about, and it just gets thrown into the wind.
Yeah.
So I would agree. I just think it's.
We might also be talking about two different things. Like I get Rob, I get what you're saying when it comes to like 75% of stuff. Right? Like, because a lot of stuff is just thrown out nonsense that makes absolutely no sense. So I get what you're saying in regards to that. But I think what we're talking about is decently well thought out ideas deserve some sort of discussion, or at least members who are showing that they're willing to have a conversation and not just push their bullshit deserve a little bit of discussion.
And I'd also add that there's been some ridiculous posts that have sparked some other form of discussion that have provided nuggets to me that maybe are relative, that make me think of something that I hadn't thought about before. So, I mean, it's all kind of useful. It's just like you feel like you just got to wade through it a little bit.
Yeah.
But this has been talked about, I think, before, where, it seems to be a movement away from that discussion and that analysis. I don't know. It seems like a year or so ago, it was definitely different in terms of my experience. I don't know if
the community, like speaking in the community.
No,
I think it's progressively gotten worse.
The debate and the discussion part of things. There's not really discussions anymore.
No,
you don't look at a post that has 100 comments and replies and people, back and forth. You don't see that much anymore.
No, but I think it's a lot of it has to do with the hijacking that Graydon was talking about. It's just like, what's the point? Like, I don't go in and discuss on comments anymore just because of stuff like that. Like, I make a comment and somebody is either like, oh, you're wrong, it's this, or oh, George is pushing his agenda, or whatever the fuck, It's like, that conversation can't happen anymore. And it's something I'm kind of trying to change. Like it makes no sense to me. It's not productive. It's a bunch of people trying to convince everybody else that they're right and everyone else is wrong, and that, nobody's right. I don't know.
So what else was Andy providing as some other tidbits? Anything
let's explore this idea. That's the fun of it.
Well, that was my main. Rob didn't get the email because that was all my main stuff. Like, I just wanted to look at New York.
This is a guest appearance. I'm just coming in.
Yeah, you just came in cold. That it just seemed really coincidental to me that a park would be named after the guy that the book was dedicated to, across from things that you could realistically say are visual clues. In a park where you could realistically say that the end of the verse would fit really well, dedicated by an organization that Byron was heavily involved in. Like, that part seemed compelling to me. And the rest of it, I just didn't know. I don't know enough about New York to make any of this stuff work. Like, this is everything that I would see in this painting and in this verse would be very site specific stuff all along 42nd Ave or 42nd Street. And I just don't know about enough about New York to know if any of this, like, it's weird. Like, Times Square, Chrysler Building, UN Building, all along this same damn road, ending up at dead ending at a park named after the dude that the book's dedicated to. Park consisting of nothing but stairs. That's all that's there is stairs, where you could legitimately walk up these stairs, count the number of steps, look down, and see nothing but dirt.
But
like, all of that was compelling.
Right? The steps are moving west, right? Or do they go around?
They're moving in like a half circle. I don't know. I didn't look.
Yeah, there's some directionally challenging things in this. Like, another thing about it would be Belmont Island.
Yeah, there's no Isle of B.
Well, there is.
Well, there is, but it's like directly.
Yeah.
It's not north.
It's right there, but it's not.
It's north. Right. Yeah, it's right there, but it's not north.
It's east. Southeast.
And and you can't even make the argument like maybe Byron was confused about his direction in the same way he was in Cleveland. This is New York. You know which way you're pointing,
Don't start.
If you're from New York, you know where north is. So yeah, it's got its problems, but it's also, I don't know, compelling. I just didn't know if anything else. I didn't know if we took the way we view this puzzle, because I'm very like stupid simple. Like, most of the way I'm describing Andy working this puzzle is not the way I would work the puzzle. And I'm just not, I wanted to see if we could like put how we work the puzzle aside and just discuss it and see if Or maybe it's just pointless, you know? Maybe what we're currently doing in the community is correct and just yelling at people. I don't know.
Well, you don't have to yell. I mean, you just have to be intelligent and, you know, make valid points. You know, you could refute.
So maybe. So do you think it would be better to educate? Because refuting doesn't help. There's
no. I mean, but if you're gonna have the discussion, you have to come with facts. I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't agree with that." You know, I don't agree because X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And maybe that fact that you're talking about is not that clear. It's not.
Well, I mean, I don't think to have a discussion you have to come with facts. I think the point of the discussion is to come up with facts.
Well, I mean, we're not just grabbing shit out of our ass, though. I mean, you know.
I mean, you can, but you could easily dismiss grabbing shit out of your ass. You know, that's what discussions are for, to figure out if something works, if something doesn't.
Yeah, and you learn so much in the process.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just you have to weigh what the value of the information is. That's it. And be objective, of course, but you still have to weigh. I mean, of course, you're going to look at something, you're going to think that's fucking stupid. You know, or that's plausible, or that's very possible, or there's some varying degree of in between all three of those points where you're going to say, let's discuss it.
But how do you determine whether information is valuable or not? This hunt does not allow you to do that very well, especially in the New York puzzle. Like, we still can't narrow down a burrow. So I don't think we can dismiss.
Well, I think that's where the painting comes in. I mean, we can't disregard the fact that we know certain things about 3 solved that you can then carry through.
Like
to
what?
Say that there are, you know, the painting holds specific clues to us. Can we agree on that?
Well, yes, but what?
Yeah,
there are matches. There are visual matches.
But there's also a massive amount of wordplay, and there's also a massive amount of visual puzzle. I mean, there's the Rebus in Milwaukee. Just about everything in Boston is some sort of visual wordplay. The Boston Globe.
Here's an example for what you were talking about. This Statue of Liberty. You know, take Milwaukee for example. Are we thinking Lake Park and the Lion is pretty close? You know, the City Hall, which is in the image, is miles away from that dig site.
No, I 100% agree.
In the same respect, if you're going to look at the Statue of Liberty and consider the United Nations in this.
The Terminal Towers far away.
And the Terminal Towers is another example. So this is what I'm saying.
The water tower.
That is a plausible point of discussion where you can say, yes, I can grasp onto that. That's a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. Check.
Okay. Well, I mean,
so
I think at this point, really the arguments that you've given against something like this is based on, it's kind of based on your ideas, other than the Gershwin thing, you know, like that's the thing. I just want us to say, I'm finding it difficult to get the community to set their own ideas aside.
You have to erase all preconceived notions about anything. And to me, that is,
you don't. You have to erase.
There has to be a basic foundation for acceptance. Like, for example, the person that yesterday, the day before, was talking about matching things up, and she was talking about St. Augustine painting.
Oh God, the one with the different verse.
I'm like, she didn't know about the flowers, or she didn't have that concept about the flowers representing months, representing, you know, like that's the foundation of things that has to. There's certain things you know are.
Okay. Yes, at that level, absolutely.
At that level, I would agree. Yeah.
But this premise that George put forth today already sits within the bounds of that.
I mean, right? But Graydon, do you want to go back to square one and really start completely over?
We're not going back to square one, because you're taking everything that you know to be true about the puzzle, and you're still applying it. You're just discussing somewhere that you haven't discussed before, somewhere that doesn't match your ideas, some just new idea, some new way of looking at visual puzzles within the puzzle itself. Not groundbreaking, like advanced mathematical bullshit drawing line. We're just looking at the puzzle a little differently.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at these squares the same way you would look at Boston Pops. You know, it's two things that have no visual matches, but they come together to make something else. Times Square is a useless freaking clue, but it's direct. It's very easy to figure out. Well, it's direct, and it's an easy puzzle to figure out. If this puzzle, if New York, if those squares were like a video game, Times Square would be your first level, teaching you how to do the rest of them. Does that make sense?
I disagree, because if you asked me if I had to put my money, I think the New York Casque is in Brooklyn. However, if the Times Square clue gets you on Manhattan, and we find out that the Casque is actually in Manhattan, then it's not a useless clue.
No, I didn't mean it was useless. I mean, it's like,
it's just not very.
It's just not very good. Yeah, it's broad. It's the same as the Statue of Liberty, but
it's not. We don't know. We don't know the thing about these clues is we don't know their proximity.
No, we don't know
when a clue is a city identifier versus an area versus 20 feet from where it's buried. We don't know.
But that's how people have perceived it for so long. People have looked at that bird, Times Square, and the Statue of Liberty and went, these are three major things in this image that are right there in your face, and they all just say New York. You know, we've got to think about them a little bit differently. We've got to figure out another way, because John's not that lazy. You know, he's not going to be like, I'll just paint three things that say New York and that's it, that we're done. Yeah. You know,
and maybe that box isn't actually Times Square. That's just
I think
it is.
I think it is. It would be hard pressed. Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe, but you're right.
No, you have to erase that from possibility.
Well, I mean, it is
start over.
I think the only other, I've seen other compelling things for that, but they've been clocks. They've been square clocks with weird pattern.
It's granite. It's, you know, you got that texture in there. That's unique, and the Roman numerals.
He had to put clocks in places for some of these paintings.
And he's got
this painting.
And he's got a
last, and he put some clip art of a church afterwards in one of the squares.
No, he didn't. JJP didn't.
Well, Byron did.
No, the creators put it in. So, I mean, yes, Times Square is a great idea. Could be right, but it's worth exploring, because I still don't understand half of the three found puzzles. So we yes, there are things in this hunt that there's a structure and there's a realm of possibility, and there are ideas that get thrown out that are so far from that realm of possibility that it's not really worth spending time on. But as a thought experiment, to just like put yourself in a plausible idea and say, okay, well, if I'm really going to explore this idea, what if I did look at that differently? What else could that be? Like, we have to be willing to be flexible within the constraints of the workable puzzle.
I think you just don't negate the idea because it doesn't match your particular solve.
Yeah.
You know, I think in each of our minds, you know, if we have a particular spot, and, you know, if you're like me, you've had a spot, and then you had another spot, and then you had another spot, you know, years go by and you bop around, but you have certain, I don't know, evidences or proofs that you feel like you found or resolved, or, you know, like really honed in on, that speak louder than the ones that you had previously. So when you're discussing the UN, of course, in my mind, I'm going through my 3 or 4 other New York spots, and I'm thinking the potentiality of whether or not that's, because that's just how my mind works, because you know, I have a logical approach to things, and, you know, you try to be objective, but you have to still, you know.
But if you have a spot,
it's not like I haven't spent 1,000 hours on thinking about these things.
Yeah,
you know, so when you come with new ideas and theories, I'm gonna go, all right, let me think about that. Let me see how I understand how that's supposed to work, and if it's valid, if I feel like it's valid. You can't.
But your other spot, if your other spot is in Brooklyn, then it has nothing to do with this particular theory.
Yeah, so it can. It can. Absolutely, it can. the same respect that the Statue of Liberty is far away from the UN, or City Hall is far away from Lake Park, etc. The Statue of Liberty or the Times Square is far away from Brooklyn. You can model that into your theory or change your theory to make it work like that. But you still have to look at that as you give that a value. That idea, you give it a value, and is there a plausibility of it? Is a 5? Is there a little bit more? It's on the Rob Security scale.
Going on the Rob scale. This conversation is going to go nowhere, so I'm going to read 2 comments. Chris said something that was like,
who's Chris? I didn't read
Chris Woodford. I'm sorry, Chris Woodford.
Oh.
He said something that was creative as shit. I know it was a joke, but it was creative as shit. He said the background of the clock is granite, so it's obviously at the Hard Rock in Times Square. I thought that was funny.
No, I thought Hard Times isn't that the thing that people think is Dickens? The 3 volumes Dickens.
Yes. Good call.
Somebody else. I just want to get your
7 right there, Graydon.
I want to get your opinion on this. Someone commented. I'll read you the whole comment. It said, "I know it's a myth, but this community is right-brained people versus left-brained. The people who made this were way right-brained. Let go of the logic brain a little." So do you think you do? You think Byron and John are just stupid creatives?
No, and this is that same vein of thought. Like I'm talking about how the images, there's representational things that we have to see as an artist that are speaking to us. We're trying to be too literal with things and not really like the metaphors and the things that are representative of something else in the image. What JJP is giving us, that's the right.
That's what I'm arguing, Rob. That's what you're arguing against.
You want me to argue against it?
No, that's what you are currently arguing against it. You are arguing against looking at parts of the puzzle more creatively than logically. I would disagree with the dude and say that Byron was not a creative person per se, like like hugely creative. He was more logical than creative. He didn't create, like I can't think of anything Byron created, like artistically. I can think of a lot of shit he put together.
He was
there's ideas and sorry, Greg, go ahead.
He was a champion of creativity.
Yeah, that doesn't make him a creative.
Not necessarily the creative genius behind it, but he saw creative ideas and found ways to make them go.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's I look at this as like in filmmaking, there's a producer. There's producer is a person that puts together the creative people. They can also be creative as well to their own respect, but they have a handle on things in a more financial and organized way, whereas the artists are the ones that are putting the art together. And I think that's kind of what BP was. He was the facilitator to say, I'm going to take this, and this, and I'm going to structure it and put those people together to work, because those are the artistic things that I need that I can't bring. I don't think BP was artistic in that sense, but he was intelligent and he was capable. And I think it does take a bit of creativity to recognize the talent, of course, and understand.
Well, so there's 2 things.
He had a through line. I want to get to this point, and I want to make this. This is what my vision is.
Yeah.
So he wasn't the person carrying out the vision so much. It was selecting X, Y, and Z.
Do you think we put him on too high of a pedestal? I don't know either.
I've had this discussion just recently again. It's like, how precise are we supposed to look at things?
Yeah.
Was he this logical, structured, like I'm getting super precise in mathematics or whatever, and figuring out where the dig spot is? Am I super precise with that? Or was this, hey, kind of walk along and here's a spot and put down, like, to me, if I was making a puzzle, and this is probably my brain, like I have to have a organized, legit X 1 inch by 1 inch. So
someone else said that the verses are creative, which shows that Byron is creative. But I would ask, how good are they? Like writing a poem is a creative endeavor, but how good are they? You know, like, or
they rhyme.
Like
Charleston rhymes pretty good. Have you read the Charleston one and noticed the rhyming in that?
Well,
like every other line.
Yeah.
They're not all like that though.
No. I'm looking at. I don't even. Never mind.
We're so off topic, though. We're so off.
Yeah,
topic.
we're off topic. But this is the point. Like
this versus, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I don't think this hunt is anyone versus anyone. I think it's a hunt, and the whole reason you have a community is to benefit from the collective work and knowledge and synergy of a community. So if we're not willing to like use each other for our own, not use each other, but work with each other for the greater benefit, then what's the point? So
you're just making a filing cabinet.
I think
in any good team, you need different types of people, right? I was assembling a team to work on this, I wouldn't want all left brain people on the team. I wouldn't want all right brain people on the team. I would want variety in my teams to think about things in a different way.
I think the problem exists after the first EU episode when all these people came on. The existing members were really good to quickly bring those people up to speed. They were really good to have those kind of conversations. But now there's just so many people joining that it's overwhelming to bring everyone up to speed. So those people joining just get into conversations with other new people who just reinforce really bad ideas and lead people off into tangents. And it's a snowball effect, right? If we're looking at this, like, I think we need to change as a community our outlook on how to converse with people. And it's going to take a while because you've got all of these really, really, really bad ideas that people just keep reinforcing that never get shut down, you know? And it's almost like new people coming in. It's almost like if Graydon, you teach band. It's like if a new kid came in who had never seen an instrument before and you were like, all right, we're going to learn how to play Coltrane. You know, like you have to teach these people the basics. You have to teach these people how to work their way up to the more advanced stuff. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of bad ideas being yelled at other people with bad ideas.
But why do you have
to teach them?
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Like when I started this hunt, I'm sure I listened to every podcast episode 4 times and had spent 100 hours of research before I made my first post in the group.
Yeah, but new people aren't going to do that. And it's mainly because of how it's presented. Like you're a puzzle person. That's what you do. But it's presented on TV as this thing that a child could do. So you could just jump in and you all of a sudden know that the Florida puzzle is mixed up with the Houston verse. And maybe we should be looking, you know what I'm saying? Like you do have to educate these people and say, no, look, think about how many people come in and say, oh, the accepted cities have just been accepted because somebody suggested them 40 years ago, but they haven't produced any results. You have to have somebody who will step in and be like, that's not what happened. Number one, they're accepted because of X, Y, Z, whatever. All of these facts that we know, they are correct. You know, you have to be willing to at least, I mean, some people aren't going to listen, but you have to be at least willing to try. And we have very little try.
We talked about earlier, the basic foundational structural stuff that has to be accepted because people have told us that's what it is. The creators have told us, like, you know, the gift giver.
The cities are correct.
The cities
stuff
are
like
correct.
that.
Yeah.
But you have to have people that are willing. I think a couple of years ago, you had to have people that were willing to have that conversation with new people. But now you have to have people who are willing to have the fight. Because it's a fight. You have a bunch of bad ideas.
You have to have a search function available too. Because that's the worst.
Oh, the people that come in and just jump in and start spewing random stuff, they're not going to search. They don't care. And I honestly think
search doesn't work that well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't do anything. It's Facebook.
No, I know. That's just it is what it is.
Yeah, but I think even in terms of longevity, because other people are going to come in and they're going to search and they're going to get these results for just crap. And there's going to be no pushback in the comments. There's going to be nobody, and I'm not saying arguing, but nobody gently pointing out like, hey, this fits with nothing that, we know about this puzzle.
You talked about in Discord that there's the channels that you can get on and, have a room where people can discuss kind of this type of format. I think that's really useful. But, and I think Javier was suggesting that he was going to do something similar to that with his discussion when he was on a couple of weeks ago. And I think that's useful. But again, you have to like, who's part of that discussion? If you're just going to put randomly people together, you're not going to get focused. It's too many cooks.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit discreet about things. And I mean, smaller groups are great. I suggest everybody get a couple of heads together and throw the ideas around.
But even still, you gotta be careful, because like you get a bunch of people from the alternative cities group together and they're going to just come up with some randomness, like it depends on who, I guess it depends on who you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to have the discretion to say who's going to be part of the discussion. And if you do it on the side channel where you say, I'm going to pick these people, 4 or 5 people together, hey, let's discuss this. Let's throw these ideas around. But, people have to want to, give up that information of their own volition. It's like, that's the hard part for people too.
Graydon, do you think so I know people have often complained that like some people's ideas aren't welcome, like the community just shuns certain people's ideas. But for the past couple of years, we've made it a pretty decent point to allow really just post whatever you want, and the community will police that however it wants to. Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think like certain standards should have been upheld? Like the cities are like the cities are correct, something like that, or latitude and longitude coordinates are in the paintings, base level stuff.
That's a difficult.
It's a hard question.
It's a difficult question. I think that I don't know. I think that sometimes the problem, like you've talked about how people need to be educated. It's hard to educate someone who's so new to things and who hasn't found a foundation to the puzzle yet. So I think some of the problems happen actually when people step in to try and educate people. When sometimes the best answer is like, instead of trying to shut someone down, just don't give it any traction. Like people just need to learn, if no one is replying about your post, then it maybe it doesn't have any.
Yeah, but people will interact, and it will be the other people with the same kind of craziness, and that's what snowballs.
But that's fine.
Is
Go
it?
ahead. Yeah, totally. But
then we end up in where we are now.
Yeah, I feel a little differently about that. I mean, I think you definitely have to focus on certain, like you have to be narrow in what the discussion's about. So whether or not that's a valid avenue to go down, you have to throw the ideas around and see again where the value of each one of those things lands. Maybe you have a discussion about a specific thing about the puzzle, right? The New York Times, let's say, or Times Square. You got to hash that out. And then if you're going to try a different avenue, you have to do the same methodology with the people involved and hash it out and throw the clues out and debate validity and how it feels, how you can, the value of those discussions. But I think if you get too wide, you get off topic, you have to focus. And so I think that's kind of where, like, the whole point of the gift giver was that, at least what I was interpreting, and I think it was said that they wanted to get us to focus
back on track. Yeah, that was 100%.
So that's what I'm talking about. Like if you get into a lane about, let's get a group of people discussing this about the puzzle specifically. Let's not talk about the whole enchilada. Let's not talk about all the metaphors in the. Let's talk about the specific thing. Let's narrow in on that. Let's see if we can debate that issue and get some clarity and some things that several people can agree on to say, okay, let's put that in the basket and put that aside. Let's keep that. All right, now let's work on this avenue. I think, again, it's just about being focused on things.
But so that happens in small group discussions, right?
Right.
Which we're trying. I think the idea was to try and model that tonight. But the main group can't function that way. There's too many people.
Absolutely not. No.
So I just think that the drama attracts drama. And so when people jump in to try and butt heads to teach someone that they're wrong and why they're wrong, it's not productive. So I would rather just see engagement. Like, if you don't have anything to say about that idea, you don't agree with it, you think it's crazy, then just don't post. Because once you start posting, then there's infighting, and then all of a sudden that's what shows up on my feed every time I have 5 minutes and I just want to check in on what's going on in the community. I don't want to see that.
I don't see
that at all.
Most of the more respected hunters aren't doing that. Because I know, like me and people like Matt and some of the more long-term people, we have a set of requirements that you have to meet in order for us to engage with your post. Pretty much, like we have to agree on some things. We got to agree that the cities are correct. If we're talking about Toledo, I have nothing to contribute to this conversation. So when you see these off-the-wall ideas, they don't match the base requirements that I'm going to interact with. So I don't comment. Matt doesn't comment. None of the kinds of people that you want to interact are going to interact. It's all going to be the people that, are just pushing bad ideas. And then you get the snowball. I mean, can you think of the last time you saw a long-term searcher fighting in the comments with somebody? They just don't engage.
Not fighting, but Matt does comment quite often and makes posts about.
It was probably a bad example.
He does, and he's trying to bring his perspective and his experience and whatever. That's fine, but I don't know that it's productive to go into the main group and try and go teach people at that point in their progression.
Well, here's something.
Just say I'd rather the rule be like, if you don't have something, the old rule, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it all. I'd rather it be like, if you don't have something on topic to say, don't say anything at all.
So we did redo so I was talking to Graydon about this earlier, Rob. I don't think you were here, about restructuring some stuff with the mods and restructuring rules and stuff. Yeah, we did redo the rules, and one of them is be kind or be quiet. So there's that.
That's a good rule. Perfect.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
My thought, I was thinking along the lines of restructuring things. I was thinking about trying to do almost like
them all a raise too.
Give them all a raise.
Incentive. Yeah.
I'll try. One of the things I was thinking of was taking searchers who aren't mods, searchers who have just been around for a while, not people that agree with me or whatever, just kind people, and making them a sort of like a liaison who just gently kind of pop in and are like, hey, something that you said may not be correct. Maybe check out this, this page, or maybe check out or when somebody's asking, how do I get permission to dig? Maybe check out the frequently asked questions and it'll answer your questions. Something that's not a mod. That
less chiefs, in my opinion.
I don't know.
That's just
dude, I don't have enough time to.
Well, then you don't moderate. I mean, you just let it go. Those people
get shit either way.
Those people kind of get taken care of, the whack of jobs,
I mean, I agree with you, but if your goal is just to have a community and have it open, then that's fine. But if your goal is to improve,
Go ahead.
I mean, if your goal is to improve the puzzle or to get more people engaged in the puzzle itself, that doesn't work.
I mean, you don't know who you're letting in. Obviously, there's going to be the next person that may have the brilliant idea that's going to match the verses or whatever. You can't discriminate in that sense, but you can discriminate when you get somebody that comes in and has this bull in a china shop type of response and reaction from people, that I think that's when you guys you get the reports, right?
Yeah.
So,
but what do you do with that? Do you just kick them out?
Yeah, you kick them out. I mean, if people are getting reported on something, you literally, what do you look at it? You say 1, 2, 3, boom, you're done.
But you get reported quite a bit.
Oh, good.
Matt gets reported a lot. Matt, like,
I can't tell you how many people block me, but then I notice that people come back and add me back again. I've noticed that too. So I must have something decent that I can contribute. I don't know. I might be an asshole sometimes, but
Mojo said that he thinks we do have a lot of longtime searchers who are not mods who do reply kindly, and that's what I'm talking about. Because Mojo does that. He'll just pop into stuff and he'll be like,
Mojo guy? Who is he?
He's not going to tell you who he is. I'm pretty sure he's like the guitarist for Creedence Clearwater Revival. I'm pretty sure that's who he is. He's not going to tell you his real name.
I'm friends with him. I don't know who he is, but I'm just checking him.
He's super nice. Have you ever have you met him?
I'm friends with him. I've never met him.
Nice dude. He ferried everybody. He took John Palancar to the bathroom.
Well, oh. Oh, okay.
During the Cleveland meetup, he drove him to the bathroom. It was nice. And Kit and Lee and Brian.
So maybe you can make a modifier ambassador and
I was thinking yeah, something like that. I don't know. There are those. It's just with Facebook, it's hard to different. It's hard. You can't really give somebody a label except for group expert. I can make them all group expert, but whatever. Just a way to.
I think it's tough too when you have so many freaking, there's like 17, 18,000 people now. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy.
We actually need more mods now. We need a couple of more. Because we had a bunch and then like half of them were inactive for whatever reason, like life gets in the way. So there's really only like 3 people that moderate this group of 18,000 people. We need a couple more.
Graydon's a good person for that.
I'm too busy. I'm so thankful.
He's already said he doesn't want that job.
So thankful for people like George and mods and all the people in this community who do the work. I'm so thankful for you. I have no interest in getting into that whatsoever.
Mojo just called out Keith James.
For those of you who've just joined the stream, if you can't tell, the theme of today was to have a productive group discussion.
All right, so let's reset.
Topic of a cast potentially being buried by the Sharansky steps. By the UN building in New York, which I had hoped to talk about today, and we've gone on a 25-minute side tangent about how to control 18,000
But these are good. These are good things to discuss, though.
They are.
Do you? Let me ask this: do you disagree that gray rectangle in the painting could be that obelisk in Ralph Bunche Park by the Sharansky steps? Do you disagree? You don't think it's a good visual match, Rob?
No, I think it is a good visual match. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So do you agree that the last part of the verse, the last like third of the verse, could work fairly well if you're putting aside the Isle of B, could work fairly well in that part?
I don't know. Let me look up something.
Okay.
I have to have it in front of me, otherwise.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Let's talk it through. I would like to still explore this idea if we could.
What's the middle of one branch? Is that the V in the sidewalk? Or, I mean, okay, here's the other question. Is that, well, it's not an obelisk, but is that monument the final landmark dig site in Andy's understanding of things? Or is that just, he's like, hey, here's a couple of things.
I don't know. I would think if you look at those squares as a puzzle in and of itself, like we were talking about earlier, there's a beginning and an end, and Times Square would be the beginning, and that obelisk would be at the end.
It would be the opposite 4 steps away, or
However,
I do think the image is okay. This is like a preconceived thing, so Graydon, don't hate me for this. I do think that there's a flip on this image, that it's mirrored. So
okay,
maybe it is the traveling east, going from Times Square left to right to the obelisk or the monument. Is there a church and there's the Statue of Liberty or something that looks like the Statue of Liberty, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I was thinking maybe it's not necessarily a church, right? Maybe it's just trying to give you two pieces of information at once, Russian and religious, right? So you have the Russian, there's no Russian connection in New York in the 80s officially, right? There was no consulate, there's no representation at the embassy. They had no building. They had nothing in Manhattan in the 80s. They didn't until the late 90s. So if you're the Miracle game, right? I don't know anything about it. Yeah. But if this puzzle's just giving you Russian and religion, you have both of that at this park. You have the Isaiah Wall, which is a quote from Isaiah, I believe, on it. And you have Russian. You have really the only representation of Russia in this area, like official representation. You got a bunch of Russian shit, but nothing official. So it could just be, instead of looking for a church, it could just be both Russian and religious. Something that's both Russian and religious.
Or something that's three, that there's three cupolas.
It could be something with three. I don't know.
Or it could just, maybe it's a reference to the Kremlin.
It could just, but what would the Kremlin have to do with anything?
Well, if the history, like if you look at the people who the book is dedicated to, or you look at,
but I mean specifically in New York, how would the Kremlin help you, other than just being like Russian?
Yeah.
I mean, in that case, I agree with you, because that image screams Russian. It doesn't have to be a church; it could be Kremlin. I mean, it's probably, like, if we're being honest, it's probably not a specific church. No. I don't know where it came from, but we've been looking for churches for years and never found that church. Yeah. So if we look for other things like Russian style buildings in the Kremlin, because there's something in the email.
What's the Indies native, by the way? Did you have any thoughts on, or did Andy have any thoughts?
I haven't. That was the thing going into this that I talked to Graydon about. I got no knowledge of this. I'm just exploring. Okay. I just took an idea that I didn't. There's you hear a lot of ideas, but most of them you could just brush aside in an instant. This one you can't. This one requires a little bit of thought. So that's why I figured it would be cool to just look at and see what we came up with. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I assume if we look for this building, I assume we'll find it. Like it looks like it was cut out of something, right?
The church.
It looks like it was cut out of a photograph.
Looks like a piece.
I mean, it could have been 4 or 5 cupolas,
Yeah. So I'm assuming we'll find that, but it doesn't. It's probably not going to be a church, because we've looked at every single Russian style Orthodox church all over the freaking world, and we can't find it.
It's in New York. That's the only thing that would have a cupola like that.
It's the Russian Orthodox. There's nothing.
That's totally unique. I mean,
yeah.
What other buildings would have that? A mosque,
No, but maybe it's not something, and maybe it was chosen because it's not something.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it was cut out, if it looks like a photo, it definitely, when you see like the sort of reconstructed images where you can see a little bit more detail of that thing, it's pretty obvious it was cut out of something. So if it was cut out of something, it was a picture of something. So we could, whether or not the specific thing is important, we could probably find the specific thing. I'm just saying that finding the specific thing isn't going to help.
But not necessarily. Maybe it's not a picture as in a photograph. Maybe it's a picture as in an illustration from. Yeah,
but we could still find it. We could still find it.
Wow.
We could still,
good luck. If it was illustrated in some children's book in the early 70s that wasn't well known or whatever, there's a billion places to look to find.
I mean, as long as it's digitized, you should be able to find it.
I think the encyclopedia was a great find.
Yeah,
that's the first step for research when I was a kid. Go to the library. But the encyclopedia at home, you go to the library and ask the librarian to help you out with things.
Yeah,
she'd point you to the encyclopedia probably first anyway. So if there's something in terms of Russia in the encyclopedia thing that would have a red square in it, and you'd see cupolas like that?
I mean, I can go grab one.
If you figured out the fair folk being the Rusalki, which is a water fairy.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with our assertion earlier that religion in Russia just works. Like, there's nothing else in this painting that tells you Russia. There's nothing in the verse that tells you Russia.
And
I can even throw away religion. It could just be Russia.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it is worth looking into. It's worth, if someone finds the image someday that is a match, that's great. And there's a chance that it could be important. There's also a chance that it's not important at all. So we can only...
Well, that's what I was getting at earlier, where you know, he added it in because there wasn't any real links to immigration in the image. So
yeah,
you know, it was a final decision. If that's the case, you know, that's
I mean, other than this, if you took that church out, this image would be French? Like that, you would have the Statue of Liberty, and that's French. That's
or you would
that's
get
what
New
you would
York and
assume.
You would think Dutch.
Yeah.
So how many of the paintings are clear? I was chatting with this about with Hardapy a little while ago. Like, how many of the images would you say give you the immigration just by looking at them?
Well, definitely Cleveland, St. Augustine, Houston, not Milwaukee, not New York,
San Francisco, yes. Charleston, yes. Roanoke,
Chicago, no.
I don't know if
San
I'd say
Francisco. Roanoke, no. Roanoke doesn't give you England.
English?
Well, maybe with the suit of armor.
Medieval could be any part of Europe, though. I mean,
that's
Spanish and
true. Some, lots,
but not all,
right? So if you go back to gift givers columns, and like you have to create a chart and fill in the blanks, because most of the paintings have clocks but are timepieces. Some of them don't. Some of them have latitude, longitude. Some of them don't. Like, you have to like create a chart and fill in the gaps until you can answer things. So the question becomes,
and you have to do it in a few pages, because he only gave us a couple of blank pages in the back of the book to figure this out.
So
you got to write small, or you got to write a few things.
Yeah,
it is. That isn't
a decision of deciding, like, does there need to be a Russian reference in New York? Maybe it was decided later on that there should be, and that's what they did.
Well, this is where the passage, in my mind, comes in, because it puts things together. It makes you think about the immigration part of it. And then there's visual matches, specific ones from that make you go, that goes there, okay. So that makes you start thinking about fair folk being matched within each image. That's probably a whole separate discussion, George, but you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the things that your thought process when you're looking at this book initially.
People who are watching, feel free to post if you have something specific that you think supports this idea or would refute this idea. Just throw it in the comments. Like, what works about this idea, what doesn't work about it.
I was thinking about something Rob just said about a couple of blank pages in the back to figure this all out, and then I was thinking about that 110-page PDF that was posted the other day. And I went and I looked, and I was like, in the back, it gives you a way to contact Byron to explain how a puzzle works, and he gives you 10 lines to do it. So at most, one of these puzzles should take you 10 lines to explain.
Yeah. Well, and the Chicago,
imagine the work it took to put that together.
Yeah.
The Chicago guys explained their theory to Byron, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you've got it. I don't understand why you haven't dug it up." And 45 years later, we still don't even understand a third of how that location
you know,
is
arguably that clue M and B is set in stone being man and beast is way better than Mozart and Beethoven.
Yeah. But way better. What people don't realize is that if you take that away, we have nothing connecting that verse to that image. No one knows how you pair the Chicago verse to the Chicago image.
The numerology works in that one, though. The counting the numbers to equal, I think it equals 5 if you use numerology for that one.
I didn't know that.
There's like 6 or 7 that work in terms of numerology, but that's one of them.
Do you think that clue was just in the Japanese hint was just the translator fucking up? Like start with like Byron saying something like start with the numbers.
I think that's how we're supposed to match. That there's some cipher coding,
some form of numbers in the verses.
I don't know. I in my mind, it seems to logically the easiest way would be if there was a number. I don't know if that's what it is, but I don't know. Kind of feel like if I was designing a puzzle, I mean, how difficult do you want to make it for somebody to match the verse to the painting?
We're also looking at it in a different way because these numbers we assign to the verses and the images we assigned.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the numbers that were assigned.
Right. You're talking about like painting 1, painting 2.
Yeah. Verse 1, 2. Verse 2. Yeah.
But there's no other numbers. The only other numbers we're given are months and you know.
I mean, you could start with that.
So
if you were making your chart, you could start with that. You could start with the number of things, the number of flowers, or the number in the clocks, or whatever, and you could eventually, filling out that form, you could come up with the cities. But if you're not just the number in verses, you're screwed. That's what I've always thought is if Byron said, "Oh, to start pairing these up, just start with the numbers," and the translator was like, "Well, where are their numbers? The numbers in the verses." Okay.
Well, I'm not talking.
But once you introduce that error, it opens up a big door that I don't like to open.
I'm not saying numerology in matching the number of the paintings. I'm saying numerology to the months.
Yeah. Okay. Like there's a number in the verse that matches to the months.
You add up those numbers, 10, 13. Let's have to look.
Andrew asked if the Japanese book refers to the verse by numbers, and I think it does. I'd have to go look, but I think it does.
10 plus 13 is 23. 2 plus 3 is 5. Those are the only those are the only numbers in the verse.
Chris Woodford said the second treasure poem says goodness first. If good is a synonym for fair, then you might suspect the fair folk are first, which would lead you to the paintings. Chris should just jump in. Chris, I'll send you the link. I don't see this conversation ending. I'm actually going to send Chris a link. Screw it. I took my Adderall. I can handle Chris tonight.
I need a refill. Hey, George.
Yes.
Since you so graciously keep hucking my restaurants every time you come on air.
Go to Cara Julio's.
I'm going to huck your shirt.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And these are, without a doubt, the most comfortable shirts you'll ever wear. T-shirts.
Good. I did not pick out the brand.
And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. They really are.
We've got some new stuff on the merch store.
I think people should. I think people should. I'm still waiting for somebody to walk while I'm out walking around. Somebody say, "You're in the secret." Look at the shirt.
That's only happened to me once. Oh, look, it's holy shit. He actually joined.
My goodness. Great White Buffalo.
Caught me at the right time. You summoned me by talking about pairings, so.
Have you been watching?
Occasion.
Have you been watching for a while, or?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe like an hour. I don't know. When did you start? I got the notification like you'd been on for 25 minutes when I joined. I don't remember what time that was.
We were talking about.
We stayed on topic that long.
Do you know the Sharansky steps?
No, I don't know much about New York. That was why I declined to join initially because I was like, I can't talk about New York at all.
Well, that's the thing. You don't need to know about New York. You just
that's
try to find the connections.
The benefit is not knowing about New York this time.
No, it is. It is like an outside perspective. Someone who knows a lot about the
Blank
puzzle,
slate.
just looking at it with fresh eyes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were looking at the different, like the way we started this out, I'll just explain, is during the New York meetup, me and Andy walked his old New York idea. And he just had this idea of looking at the squares in the painting as mini puzzles in and of themselves. Sort of like you have a square with a clock in it. That's Times Square, right? So what if we were to look at the remaining squares the same way? What would we get from them if they were little mini puzzles? And one of them was just Jewish religion for the Russian church, or Russian religion for the Russian church. There was a decent match at the Sharansky steps for the last rectangle. The Sharansky steps are a set of stairs in a park called Ralph Bunche Park, which are dedicated to the same person that The Secret is dedicated to. And it was the dedication was spearheaded by the Jewish Federation that Byron's a member of, and it all happened right around 1980. So it's legitimately just a staircase that's above a little garden, not a garden area, but like a dirt grassy area with trees.
And if you start at Times Square and you use Gershwin as a clue for 42nd Street, Rhapsody in Blue was premiered at a theater on 42nd Street. If you think that the eagle could be one of the figures on the Chrysler building, that's on that same line. And so you follow 42nd Street from Times Square all the way down to the water, you hit the UN building, and you end up coincidentally at this site that was dedicated to the people the book was dedicated to. There's a potential image match. What else? There's
that people it was dedicated to. You mean those like 3 Russian freedom fighters?
Yeah.
One of them is
Sharansky.
Sharansky.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that tracks.
Yeah.
So the things that are missing is there's decent stuff for the first part of the verse. Like in the shadow of the gray giant, I was saying the only thing that is really well known, like we can argue over what the gray giant is, but one thing that's well known in New York for being known as gray whatever is the Times, which is the Gray Lady. And it's this giant building that's coincident. It's not on 42nd Street. It's like a block down, I think. But if you're at Times Square, you can see this building. If you're at Times Square on 42nd Street, you would be in the shadow of it.
But if the image match for the rectangle is on site, then being in the shadow of the Gray Giant could refer to one of those 2 image matches.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying it's a great clue, but could be.
If you're saying if it's the obelisk at the Sharansky steps or the UN building.
Yeah.
The other thing was that we were talking about earlier was the eagle, and eagle in the image has those weird seagull legs that none of the accepted statues that look like that eagle have. And it seems to be pointing to something on the sleeve. And Andy pointed out that it kind of looked like the highlights and the shadows are UN, which when I saw it didn't seem like much of a stretch to me. So it was essentially using those blocks as a path. Start at Times Square, past the Chrysler to the UN, look for something that with Russian religious symbolism and this gigantic obelisk. It was essentially his path. The problem is once you get to the end, yeah, you have to
ahead.
Yeah, you have to kind of skip ahead. The only problem is at the end, there's a bunch of stuff that there's no explanation for. And in the middle, there's some stuff there's no explanation for. It's everything else that's really good.
We're working backwards.
We are. We're not even really working.
But it sounds a lot like Boston. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if there are strongly compelling elements to an idea, it's worth exploring, right?
It's worth exploring.
We never know.
How about a First Avenue clue? That would seem like street names or 42, if that's the location.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anything. Like, that's the thing. New York is so, if we know anything about these puzzles, it's that these clues end up being very on site, right? And I don't know enough about New York or this area in general to make a valid argument for anything.
Isn't it called Avenue of the Americas? I don't know if it's
First
the
Ave
whole
or-
way. United Nations Plaza.
There are 21 lines of verse, so you got a lot of work to do.
The formal name for 6th Avenue is Avenue of the
Avenue of the
Americas.
Americas. Yeah, okay, sorry.
I mean, there are 6 lines, but a lot of them, I don't know, are of. What the fuck am I going to do with of?
Or more.
I think that's a
Or,
valid
yeah, that's it,
point.
or more.
Or nearby. Why is nearby on its own? Like what?
That was it. That was it nearby.
What
Yeah.
information is he trying to give us by doing that? Like these are the questions. If someone can crack that shit out of
And
these.
we've tried to anagram that stuff so much, and it just doesn't work. It
Sure
doesn't.
it does. It says
I mean, it works for
Toto.
TOTOFO.
The only thing that I've reasonably been
IO.
able to come up with is the
IO.
Coney thing.
What's
I
the
don't know.
Tony thing?
It was, I forget, it was what, near Coney Isle or something was what it came up. What it
Anagram?
anagram to. Yeah. It was stretchy, so I never.
There was like Canarsie or Can. What about the Indies native? Is
Yeah.
Hamilton around that area? That's further north, isn't it? Like the hundreds?
I don't know. That's the thing.
I think
There's a lot of there's.
And the question is who are the Indies natives, right? Like a lot of people tie that to a very specific person, but at the same time, the natives of the Indies are the Caribbees as like referenced in The Vanishing. So like maybe that's something that needs to be.
Well, that was always something, but we have to start from a blank slate.
Wait, are you saying that the Indies natives would be the fair folk? In some way representative of the fair folk in the book?
It could
Like
be
some
they're
physical representation?
well, yeah, or
That's
not
something I've never thought of.
not necessarily. I'm trying to, if we're doing it from first principles and we're taking Hamilton out of the equation for a moment, like that, if we read this as he's talking about the natives of the West Indies, it is very clear in The Vanishing who those are.
The Caribbean.
Canarsie.
The Caribbees. So that
Oh, Caribbees. Caribbean.
correct. So it could be something. There could be something around there that's related to.
I mean, dude, if you're putting me at the UN, I could find anything for any nationality, any.
That's a good point.
But God only knows what was there in the 80s versus what's there now. Like it all changes.
But it was still there. The UN was still there.
The UN was still there, but the parks were different. The roads were different. All the signs were different because I mean it changes depending on who's, popular or whatever. But the one thing that I do know, nothing Russian. Nothing.
Yeah.
No road names, no park names, no embassy, no consulate, no nothing. So I don't know.
I mean, it makes those steps sound pretty compelling. So, what's the name of the park or is it in like a space? Is it in?
It's Ralph Bunche Park, and from what I understand, so it was. Let me read you the name of this organization. If I can find it again, it has a weird name. The
park was originally the United Nations Plaza Park, and it was renamed Ralph Bunche Park in '79.
So the stairs were named the Sharansky Steps by the Greater New York Conference on Soviet Jewry, and I think from what I read, they were trying to rename the park after him, but the city sort of just suddenly named it Ralph Bunche Park. So they started petitioning for the steps to be named after him. But that would have been in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. What is when it was named Ralph Bunche Park?
79.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, the steps being named for it is pretty good on its own. Like,
yeah. What I was thinking was like these people that the book's named after, they're not famous people. They're nobody that anybody would know unless they were looking at very specific things. And I was curious to myself, like, how would Byron know these people?
Well, you're part of
unless
the community, you would know that.
Especially if they were part of this organization that was trying to get all of this stuff named.
Not even part of the organization, but just in the Jewish community, I'm sure that.
I don't know enough about the Jewish community or the plight of the Russians back in the 80s to know if that would have been, common knowledge.
I mean, the theme of freedom is like strong throughout almost every section of the book. So like that also tracks as something that he cared about a lot.
Yeah.
The sculpture says peace form. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Peace form?
Yeah,
that's kind of.
It's called Peace Form 1. The quote is about like avoiding war. You're next to the United Nations. Like there is a very.
That fits the front of the book pretty well.
Yeah.
I just think these are very specific people and would had to have been chosen for a very specific reason.
Or he's just calling it out as a bit of respect to his community.
Possibly.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
again, these are like what level conjecture. Are these things if they're clues at all? Yeah. It's all in the realm of possibility if you want to, depending on how wide a net you want to cast.
Well, I mean, this isn't a very wide net. I mean, even what we're talking about.
Well, no, it is because we're like trying to figure out how these other verse clues or verse things or ideas work in this.
We're not trying to figure out how they would. We're trying to figure out if any of them do. And like, it's not like we picked a random spot and we're like, oh, let's make it fit. It's pretty specific and it has fairly decent evidence to back it up. And it's just not, it's like exploring.
It's
look at historical areas
were found.
Yeah, it's the way the rest of them were found.
That's exactly how it was found. You find enough compelling things that seem to fit together in an area, and then.
But is that just dumb luck?
Yes. Have any of them, like, can we honestly say any of them have been found with skill? Not that they were unskilled, but you know what I mean, like with precision, with skilled precision.
No, I agree, but to your point prior. I mean, dumb luck got us 3 out of 12 in like 40 plus years. So maybe thinking about them in a different way is what's needed. Like a left turn somewhere where it's not what we expect it to be. And like that goes back to the quote someone posted earlier in the comments. Like Byron believed that it would not be found by luck. So he believes there's a way to do it. We just can't get into his brain to figure it out.
There are very few times. I mean, there are a few times when something from one of these cities is referenced in the front of the book. Right? There's the founding of Montreal. There's the founding of Roanoke. There's the founding of St. Augustine, and then there's a whole shitload about Manhattan. There's probably 10 times more about the founding of Manhattan than there is any other place. And the book's dedicated to these people who have a set of steps in Manhattan. And I don't know. I mean, it's just a whole lot of just weird circumstantial stuff.
There's a park behind there too. I'm just looking at historical aerials. I think that park is still there.
There's a park in front, across the street.
There's
two parks on either side of.
On the west side of the building. It's a big open green space. In 1980. Can't tell if it's a.
It's still on the other side of Tudor Greens, you're saying. No, it is Tudor Greens. Tudor Greens Public
Tudor
Park.
Greens, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's across from that. Is that a sports field across the street there? No. The one on the southwest.
God, I'm using
What is
Google
that?
Earth.
Yeah. Tudor Greens City, what is it called? City
There's
Greens
Freedom
South Park.
Plaza.
Tudor
There's
City Greens South Park is
that a sports field?
I don't know. It's hard to tell in the aerial for 1980. I mean, there's lines that look like pathways, but it's hard to tell if it's a sports field or.
Is this the one? It's just north of the UN.
No,
because that was just a plaza.
No, so this is on 42nd Street, just west of First Avenue.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about now.
But why are we leaving the stairs?
I have no idea.
Well, the stairs are just around the corner there. I'm just, if we're talking vicinity and we're looking for a park or someplace to dig and plant this, if it's in a planter, that's one thing. But if there's a park adjacent, I would say that's viable as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind exploring anywhere. Like that fits the goal of this.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're leaving the spot. We're doing it for a good reason.
For a good reason. Yeah.
Well, if there was a baseball field there, would that be a good reason?
No.
But Byron loved baseball.
If you could find a home plate in the New York image, then yeah.
Whatever happened with that girl in New York's? Did we ever find out about that?
The one that I scanned?
Yeah.
We found some stuff. So that park was redone. I'm sure you know about the park and it being redone. And nobody really knew where third base was. Everybody was looking at third base. And we did find that. It seems like they left the concrete capstone for third base underground. So we're able to find like that big concrete block. And I made a couple of marks that she could go back and find pretty easily. I don't know that she ever dug. I think she ran into some problems with some people and she was just like, it's not fucking worth it.
So did you have some good signatures from it though?
I mean, good is relative. Like GPRs, you have no idea what it is. I had signatures, but there's no way to tell if it was a rock or there's no way to tell. So, but there were a couple of spots where there was something about, I would guess about the size of a plexiglass box with a cask in it. And we made marks for her to go back and dig up, but I don't think she ever did.
So, Chris, where do you think you might dig if there's not planners?
I mean,
if that's the final dig spot.
The things that I know that were given, especially at the end of the Vanishing, is when the fair folk hid their treasures. We know they have their love for nature, and they remained true to their heritage when offering a simple truce to us to find these treasures. So nature and the heritage, those are the two things I'm looking for. So I want to see Russian and something that would be classified as nature. That's true for the three that have been found, because technically a baseball diamond is still nature, I guess.
I mean, and I think if you're looking at these in a keep it simple mindset, if you break these verses down, you have descriptive lines and then you have action lines. And there are always very few action lines in the verses, right? Yeah. Things that you need to do. Look down, see simple roots and rhapsodic man's soil, right? That's an action line. That's something the verse is telling you to do. So if you were to put me here and force me to dig a spot, I would climb up 22 steps. I'd look down, find a place, dig a hole.
There's also the wanting to be playful. Isn't that also part of the front of the book?
Yeah, if
Playful.
you're good and
If
kind
you're
and
good,
playful,
kind of playful.
And playful.
you will-
So playful meaning like, you look at a baseball field. That's where people play. Kids
Or a
play.
playground.
Park and playground. I see that
Yeah.
as a call out as well.
So, and then how do you tie in good and kind? Because he wouldn't give us 3 words, only for one of them to be important.
I'm doing it with,
I mean, you could do it with that piece, obelisk.
with honor. Yeah, but that's direct. Yeah, that's pretty direct piece. But also, I mean, it's possible that that's not exactly the final dig spot.
It's true.
Maybe it's a stop along the way, that this is a.
But I can't see
landmark.
anything else that would tell you what to do.
The-
I mean, think about the Chicago. I guess, did Chicago have an action to it? Both Cleveland and Boston both had an action. Feel at home, and Cleveland
Hush.
basically telling you where to dig.
But feel at home is positional. You are at home. It's not
But you
telling
were
you, but you're supposed to feel, I guess. Okay.
But you're supposed to feel.
Supposed to feel, but you are also
Right.
at home, like you are in Chicago. You're where M and B. That's giving you a location. I mean, the only real directional one is left, that it would be telling you to go to the to over.
Well, no, there's
older
for finding the Jules Casque, seek the sounds of rumble. So he's telling you to seek. He's telling you that general area.
Cleveland
Yeah.
is seek too. Cleveland is seek the columns.
It's interesting because in
It's also
Chicago, I always
hop.
think of seek in terms of research, but yet in Cleveland, I definitely think of seek in terms of
Cleveland has hop in it as well.
Yeah, and I guess Cleveland just tells you where it is. It says beneath the 9th row from the top.
No, but it does say you can hop. So like you're told to. I don't know why he chose hop.
But
That's a good question.
I think because the steps don't exactly match. I think the 7 don't. There's not 7 steps unless you count that jumping.
Yeah,
up.
unless you count that big jump.
You have to hop up top, do a.
Which, dude,
box jump.
That would take a basketball player to hop, but whatever. It's pretty tall.
It's a box jump.
If the look down in simple roots in Rhapsodic Man's soil is what you're saying it is, then Rhapsodic Man's soil becomes problematic because this specific area we don't have a Gershwin tie.
Unless you're just using Gershwin for 42nd Street.
Right.
And then it's his soil.
Yeah.
But this is non 42nd Street. It's just off of it's around the corner, right? It's on the cross street.
Yeah.
I think
there's a
42nd Street links than Gershwin in my mind, but as
Yeah,
far
I think 42nd
artists
Street
and
can
things.
Gershwin, but if the specific dig spot is in Gershwin soil, I don't know how that connects.
I mean, unless we're just talking about generally, like if we're talking about how Roanoke was the British soil,
Where
talking
was
about a
Rhapsody in Blue? Where was the actual, where did it take place? The play?
The
Do you know?
premiere,
Was it New York City? Was it
the
downtown, uptown?
no, the
You know that?
premiere of Rhapsody in Blue was on 40.
No, not the premiere. Like the subject of the play itself. It's a musical composition. Wasn't it also a stage production or no?
I don't think so.
I'm wrong about that then. Okay, never mind.
It's an orchestral piece.
Okay.
Yeah, you're thinking of Porgy and Bess was the
Porgy and Bess
musical. Well, where was Porgy and Bess?
He wrote that when he was spending time in Carolina or something. He was out of New York when he was researching and writing about that.
Yeah, and it's set in Charleston.
Well,
I don't know, some weird Rhapsody in Blue, like the piano, the Aeolian company that he worked for, and the place where the premiere was is tied to building pianos, and the island. what's the B island I mentioned just off Belmont Island?
Belmont.
Was originally
It's
created.
Belmont or Roosevelt Island? That's there.
No, Roosevelt is the large one north of it, but Belmont is the small one. If you think that's Isle of B, although it's east and not north.
Yeah.
Has to do with when Steinway was trying to build the subway tunnels. Steinway is in the piano company.
This is another question. Like, how deep do you feel like research needs to go in terms of his clues?
Not very.
Depends. Not very. However,
But
some of the quotes
some
are
of them are
pretty
pretty
obscure.
I would say the depth you need to dig is directly proportional to the amount of information you get from it. So like if you're say you're looking for that quote in New Orleans, that gives you if you find that quote, that gives you a general area and a city. That's a lot of very important information in regards to that puzzle. So it makes sense that in order to find that very important information, the clue would be very difficult to find.
You kind of have a visual match with Roosevelt Island and the draping of the robe.
Yeah, kind of
narrow.
Rachel O'Malley said Rhapsodic doesn't have to be Rhapsody in Blue, but we talked about that earlier, and it almost kind of does because of the Japanese hints. It almost kind of has to be. I mean, it could either be Rhapsody in Blue or it could be Bohemian Rhapsody. It's got to be something with Rhapsody in the title.
But it's referring to Rhapsodic Man.
Yeah, it's referring to the person who wrote it, not the thing. But it's
yeah. If it's not Gershwin, that's a terrible clue. I think.
Oh, you're gonna have fisticuffs if you're not talking Gershwin.
And the only thing, like, it's weird because all of the main image matches for this are in Manhattan. Everybody looks elsewhere. Everybody looks in Brooklyn. Everybody looks in Coney, and that's fine. But the main image match is the one everybody agree on is in Manhattan. But the amount of Gershwin shit in Manhattan is small. I mean, there's one house? He had one house in Manhattan?
No, but his career.
His career existed in Manhattan.
Yeah.
But his, like, if we were to say his soil, somebody said in the comments, if I were to say George's soil, what would you be talking about? And the reply was George's property. So if you're looking at Rhapsodic Man's soil that way, as in his property, it's small. Like he had one apartment in Manhattan.
Or, I mean, things grow out of soil. So it could, if not his property, be where he grew up.
His works?
Brooklyn.
Especially,
or it could, it could be his works. Yeah. Simple roots. This is where everything that he planted grew from.
Or we're being too literal again, and it's like more abstract.
I feel like if the United Nations is there, that seems like that is the biggest landmark that you could have for that area, that vicinity. So that UN needs to be something very present, very obvious, very.
Do you not think it's? Do you not think it's obvious?
Not the monument. I'm talking about the building across the street from the monument.
No. I mean the UN in the painting.
Yeah.
Do you not think that's obvious in the sleeve?
No.
It's pretty good.
Like when it's pointed out, like I know it's not obvious when you're not looking for it, but when it's pointed out to you, like look directly below where the eagle's legs are pointing and look at the highlights. Do you not think that UN is pretty obvious?
Oh, the letters UN.
Yeah, the letters UN.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the building was like.
No. Because I kind of took when Andy pointed that out to me.
That's always been NY. Also, I mean, it could definitely be you. Absolutely.
I kind of thought of that as like when Andy pointed it out, kind of like Boston Pops. Like it just blends into the background and you don't think about it until somebody points it out and you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty damn obvious.
But the architecture of the UN is very specific. The shape
like
of the building
on
is very specific.
Yeah, on her shoulder, Chris. I didn't know about it either. I'd never seen it until George pointed out.
It's her right. Her right shoulder has the letter N.
If you draw a straight line from the feet, it doesn't take you there. I'll tell you that.
No. It's in the
I
vicinity.
see it
I mean,
now.
it's
I was looking at the wrong place, being like, "This does not look like UN at all."
does it not?
It kind of points to the beginning of the U.
Oh, it goes down. It goes straight down to her forearm, where there's that other weird
Okay, well, the feet are angled,
outline
whatever.
thing.
It points in the middle of the two parts of the church, which keeps going. Okay, yeah, whatever. It points in the vicinity. It points enough to be like, look here.
It's not an exact point. It's
But no,
an elbow point.
Your point
But, like,
still stands. It just it's pointing at that other thing on the bottom part of her sleeve, which I have no idea what that is.
I think my thing earlier before you were on was if you were to divide this lady in half, her right side, our left, has a shitload of detail, but her left side, our right, is nothing. There's nothing there. I mean, even like the bottom of her sleeve where there should be a highlight or a shadow, he didn't even bother to put that. Like, there's no detail whatsoever. But our left, her right is packed. The thing that we were also talking about earlier, like with the flower, the chrysanthemum stem. If you were to take find the arm that extends over the slender path, if you were to take that and stop looking for a specific physical thing in the vicinity, and you were to look at the painting, there's only one arm that extends over anything, and that chrysanthemum stem is nothing but a tiny, slender, straight ass path. I was saying that it could represent 42nd, but what the fuck ever.
Could be First Avenue too. Yeah, the lighting in this painting
it's wonky.
It's wonky. There's two light sources.
Chris, any thoughts how, like, Belmont Island, it seems coincidental that there's an Isle of B right there, but it's
the wrong direction.
Southeast. Any thoughts on how gaze north could get you there?
Maybe north is a proper noun, like somebody's name.
Oh.
Well, it's not capitalized, but
doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to for direction. But I'm just saying, if it was a proper.
Could you separate it? Could you separate it?
There's some propers that aren't capitalized. Octave, for one example.
Or it also says you're looking towards the Isle of B, not at the Isle of B.
Yeah.
So the Isle of B could be directional. It could be look north, but also a little this way, or you know.
Yeah. So looking north toward the East River. Yeah. What's
You'd be in Brooklyn.
I mean, I think even this conversation shakes the foundations of, because everybody's always like, look north towards the Isle of B. You have to be staring at something north named with a B, when that's not what the verse tells you to do. It tells you to look north towards something.
Towards.
Like, I could tell you, if we're in St. Augustine right now, I could tell you to go north towards the Castillo de San Marco, but that shit's west of me, you know?
Yeah. If you look north towards the East River, you're looking kind of just to the left of the UN building. You're looking out towards Roosevelt Island.
Man, I wish I could get Google Earth.
You don't have it on your computer?
No, I use Linux, and they don't have Google Earth for Linux. Sucks.
You can use it on your phone. Your mobile app is actually pretty good for that.
Is it?
Have you tried that? It's pretty decent.
This should be a warning for community members. Now that we brought this shit up, I now use Linux. I downloaded a PDF file. There was an old PDF file that was on the group, and found out that it had JavaScript tracking in it. Something that I don't think people know is
which one was it?
I deleted it. And I'm not going to say who posted it, because I don't know that it was intentional, because they shared it from someone else.
So was it posted on a post from them, or was it uploaded?
It was
12 tracks?
No, it was posted on Facebook from them, but it was someone else's that they shared. It was somebody else's PDF that they shared. So I don't know who put the tracking script in it.
That's crazy.
So if you're downloading PDFs from people randomly, turn off every PDF viewer, even Chrome and shit, has an option to turn off JavaScript for PDFs, and you should do that. Doesn't necessarily matter to me, but like I said, I deleted that one, and that was another reason that I wanted to do this photo archive thing and make it to where you could upload PDFs there, because I can set that shit to automatically strip all of that stuff out.
But aren't you still looking at everything before it goes through? That's a
Me
ton of work.
on that, kinda. There's a lot of automation with it. And I can set it up to automate, like just like when you upload a picture, I can strip the EXI or the XIF whatever data from it automatically. I can do that with code and PDFs too, so I don't have to manually do anything. Anyway, just be careful.
Hymn of Hard Word.
I'm sure this is not new news to anyone who studies New York puzzles, but it's not related to our area at all. But Jeff Sapero posted Gershwin's apartment in Hamilton Heights in Manhattan is 520 West 144th Street, right next to what was Hamilton Square.
Yeah, that's 100. That's up in the hundreds.
It's just interesting because it's Gershwin and Hamilton, and Square could be simple roots.
That's nowhere near Graydon. We can't accept that.
No, interesting. I'm just people out there that are like me that watch 2 hours of discussion to try and pick up a couple of little tidbits. There's one that could help someone.
Amen. I think that's good. Square roots are simple roots. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's all really nice stuff. Sorry, you were saying Hymn of Hard Word. Yeah.
You know what the best I've ever heard for Hymn of Hard Word came from Chris Preacher, and it was Rockefeller, because feller's a hymn.
Yeah.
And hard word's a rock, Rockefeller. I always thought that was creative.
Asimov is pretty good, though. Hard sci-fi.
No.
The Rockefeller building is a long way from...
It's a long way away, yeah.
42nd, right?
Yeah, he never tied that into anything. He was just like, this is really creative.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm going to be right back. Sorry.
Hey, Graydon, you planning on coming down to Florida this year?
I wish.
Where was it? You were in Tampa last time?
Yeah, we would love to go down again. Currently our school division has put a block on any professional travel to the U.S. So we're gonna have to wait on that one. But I'd love to go back again.
Hope that'll change.
Yeah, I hope several things change.
Let's not talk politics.
No, I just hope that Canada and the U.S. can be good friends in the future.
I don't think there's a good way of getting around the north part of this. Something being
Rockefeller Center isn't that far away. It's like 7 blocks north of Bryant Park, but it's a bit of a stretch.
And you're taking twice as many east steps. Those steps are north of the monument, aren't they? Or the wall is north of the monument.
Sorry, say that again, Rob?
The Isaiah wall.
Yeah.
It's north, gaze north. Is there a heliport around there for whirring sounds?
Yeah, there's everywhere.
That's a good point.
There might be one on the UN.
But why would that be summer?
Sorry.
Huh?
Why would that only be in summer?
Oh, well.
Yeah, what would be in summer over here?
Why would summer be significant?
Yeah.
And where does in summer fit? Is it in summer it extends over the slender path, or in summer you'll often hear the whirring sound?
No, it's the whirring sound.
Or is it either? Neither.
I mean,
We don't know.
This is where that rhythm of the poetry of it seems like it should work.
Yeah.
This verse is free verse. Like there's compared to the structured rhyming of like a verse 7 or something, like this is all over the place. It's more like verse 8 in that sense.
And
like although the sign nearby, that shouldn't be broken up in my mind. Although the sign nearby, or unless there's two separate thoughts about that.
I mean, it could be cars abound, although the sign.
Like if there's signs about the cars.
If there's a no parking sign, but there are cars parked everywhere because it's like a commercial building where employees are allowed to park or whatever, you know? I mean, I can think of logical examples for any of these, just as logical as, you know, any that's currently put forth.
If you're a believer of near those who pass in Boston, then sometimes the idea can even stop halfway through a line. Like it doesn't even have to be restricted to being exactly pairing one line with another.
I mean, if you break that up, right? If you break that up at the cars abound, although the sign, and then leave off nearby, then nearby speaks of Indy's native. It doesn't have to be something that you're right beside. It's something that you're near.
Yeah. Nearby speaks of the Indy's native. Nearby speaks of Indy's native.
Like it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound correct, but I think that's only because we've read this verse a specific way for so long. We've gotten used to that sort of flow where that flow may not be correct.
Yeah.
Okay, not a way to obscure information. He did it to be obtuse. He did it to make it harder.
Yeah.
So what was he trying to convey, or how do we deconstruct what he's trying to convey? Or there's something else going on and he needed nearby to be on its own for some reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the other thing, is that it's important in some way that it had to be on its own to be used properly.
So does this, George, do you know that this monument and Jewish organization, do they have any parallel to the UN itself, or is it just a standalone? Like the UN has nothing to do with it. Happens to be across the street.
It just happens to be across the street. Well, I mean, I think that the park was intended to be connected to the UN, but the organization that did the naming, it has nothing to do with the UN.
Okay.
And the park's owned by the city of New York. It has nothing to do with the UN. I mean,
so if there's a story to be told, it doesn't necessarily have to include the United Nations as part of that. It's really more just about the immigration. Okay.
There's something interesting to me that I just looked at. So if you break these up, like it only works in a couple of different parts, but these weird way the verse is broken up, like nearby and or more and of the V, that section's broken up as 1, 2, 3, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 2 words, 3 words. But I guess it's all on how you read it. So never mind. So that doesn't work. In the beginning, it's 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3.
Jeff Sapero again said Norman Rockwell's childhood home is a few blocks away. He released his art in 1976 in 3 volumes. Jeff, where is that? When I Google searched it, it said his childhood home was on Long Island. Do you have a specific spot or address?
Alan Humans asks, why not start with a road clue, no verse, like West 51st Street? You see the 5 and the 1 in the paintings, armpits. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, again, this is kind of how I was talking earlier, like the referencing of the metaphors and creative ways of speaking to us through the imagery, how that's translating to a location, or for, like we're talking about the lighting or things that are only on the one side of the painting. There's clues there. I mean, we're only supposed to look to her right, or is it actually the left because it's mirrored?
I think no matter what conversation we ever get on in New York, I will always fall back. The conversation will always end at this verse is cut up weird, and I want to know why.
Yeah, and that to me that kind of says towards the cipher anagram coding type of thing, because there's a repeated use of that O.
I don't.
And also, I mean, I'm not talking necessarily anagrams, but if Saloy and Cabot are very obviously
Cabot
there,
is questionable at best. It is spelled incorrectly.
It's spelled incorrectly, but there is
not
also
correct. Saloy is correct. Saloy is spelled correctly. We can take that one.
Granted, but I'm just saying the point I was going to make was that it's telling us, look at these first letters. There's a word being spelled out there. We need to look at the first letters for whatever it is we need to find.
Acrostics are a common puzzle trope, like absolutely. Like, but is it the method or is it the information that's important?
Yeah. Does the existence of Saloy make it less likely that there's an acrostic in the other verses because you'd already used that technique somewhere? Or
is it, if you take the puzzles as a whole, like if you take all 12 as a whole, is it sort of like I was saying with Times Square earlier, like you have an easy example for harder shit you need to find?
But you don't have to anagram Saloy.
That's what I'm saying. There's an easy example. This is a method that I'll use.
I'm just saying that
now I'm including harder.
It's a suggestion of a vehicle of his clues, how he's hiding these things for us to discover. He's leaving breadcrumbs to say something's in the first letters.
For sure. But then he would also need to tell you how to do it as it gets progressively harder.
If he was good at this.
So if you say Cabot is there, but it has a double B, that doesn't not make it say Cabot when you speak it.
But Abbott with two B's and a single T is a real word with no C on it. So why would we ignore?
It could be both, but Abbott. It could be both, right?
Why would you ignore Abbott, especially in the city of?
Because isn't Cabot with a single B the founder or one of the? Isn't that a real person as far as the Montreal history?
He is a real person, but you wouldn't spell his name wrong.
But isn't Abbott also ABBOT, having to do with the church?
Correct.
So why not?
But Cabot didn't have to do with the church.
No, he doesn't have to. But just using the word Cabot and also making it, hey, I want to put Abbott because maybe that's a reference to a church, that we're in a church grounds or we're somewhere in that vicinity of. It's a possibility, right?
So Byron was like, I'm so devilish. I'm going to spell this guy's name wrong, and they're going to have to figure that out.
No, but it's not spelled wrong. It's how you say it. It's how it's.
I mean, it is spelled wrong.
It is spelled wrong.
I think you're taking
maybe, but
I think you're taking the wrong argument, Rob. What you should do is say,
it's a homophobe.
Remember when he said to count from right to left? Like maybe he just didn't put in as much thought.
But there are homophones in the verses that we think too. So why couldn't that be a homophone?
Because that's a bit of a leap.
Like for Cabot?
That would be a bit of a leap. If you were to find Cabot and start looking for Cabot, you would not find that person because it's spelled incorrectly. And if you did find that person, you would be like, well, this is not what it's referencing because it's not spelled correctly. I mean, I could buy Abbott.
To know who he was in advance to know that his name was spelled wrong. If you went to the library and was like, all right, librarian, here's what we're going to do. Is there someone named OCAB? No? Wookab. No, Cabot. Oh, okay, cool. Like you wouldn't do that. You'd have to know him in advance, or you'd have to come across it
Or
already
hieroglyphics.
knowing about Montreal, already like being into so deep into it that information then doesn't actually
Yeah.
help you.
And those kind of things are clues that I refer to as confirmation clues. The things that you find through your research or understanding the city, whatever, that pop out to you is, oh, Saloy. That was a place in St. Augustine.
Well, it would be a very specific. It's a person.
Yeah.
It would be a very, but it would be a very specific thing where the information where you would find that information is like 5 feet away from the windrows that you would also find.
But no, where
okay,
you would find that information is on page 1 of the Vanishing, where you're like, okay, cool. I'm reading about the Iberian Hatta, so I'm going to look up the Timuca and the Calusa, and then you're going to find Saloy immediately.
Maybe. That's a tiny little village.
But if you went, if you looked
again, Chris,
if you dug in, yeah,
Chris,
if you looked up those tribes in an encyclopedia, you are going to find him.
Yes, of course, and that's what I'm saying. It's a product of research. It's not a product of common knowledge. Yay or nay?
Yes, Cabot. No, I'm you're not gonna, he wouldn't spell it wrong. I think
I'm talking about Saloy.
Oh, Saloy. Absolutely. But it's research grounded in the information he gave you in the book. So if you say, I'm going to take this information from the book and take it to the encyclopedias, that's you've got a direct line of sight there for sure. If you take the information in the book about Quebec, where's it going to take you? It's going to take you to the Dutch-French trade war, to the Hudson Bay Company, to like all sorts of this stuff. So where that doesn't get us to Cabot, you'd need to find what gets you there first. That for me, that's how I mean, we take it all the way back. That's how I approach things. So we approach things differently. That is okay, but
that was always my like first Montreal idea, was that you need to find somebody to ask for permission. Who are you going to find to ask for permission? The abbot. Because I was looking at churches back then, but whatever. Because it was like a 1-to-1. It was a 1-to-1 thing. I could see the fingers the figure was making as that old. Here's the church. Here's the steeple. Whatever game you would play.
The other thing I like for that is that adage about seek forgiveness, ask permission. It's easier to ask permission than seek forgiveness. So if you take the expression of ask forgiveness and you turn it into ask permission, and you relate it to seek forgiveness, then that might lead you to a church. The clue is seek forgiveness. But I would just think take one of the B lines.
This summer.
We take one of the B lines and we donate it to the Milwaukee verse, and we bring the Drummond clue from Milwaukee to the Montreal verse, and then everyone's happy. We have Cabot and Drummond. It works perfectly.
So then we got to switch verses too, right?
No, just some lines. You pointed out that there's 5 O's sticking out in the New York verse, Rob. Right?
No.
All the O's?
Yeah.
I just said there were a bunch of O's, so I didn't say
there's
5.
There's 5. So what if the middle of one branch of the V, what if the V is actually the Roman numeral for 5? Does that work? One branch of the, like if you look at each.
Wouldn't that be capitalized then?
Wow.
No, it can be both ways.
Capitals are fluid in this.
Mm-hmm. That's 100% accurate. Yes.
I like that.
Is there something that sticks out if you look at the 5 lines, the middle of one of those lines?
Or the middle of the 5 would be of him of hard word. No, it'd be of or more.
Middle of one.
And they're not evenly spaced either. Like the second line, and then you go way down towards the bottom, you got 4.
That's weird. George, when you went to
I
the
don't know.
site, did you go up the steps?
I did.
Like, how many of them are there?
There are a lot. There are more than 23 or 22. There are a
So,
lot. I
did you
didn't count
stop?
them.
Did you stop at the 22nd step and
I
look?
did. I remember doing that, and I remember there being nothing. Like it was unlandscaped. There was like a tree, and it was just dirt.
And these steps are the curved steps that go around?
Yeah,
The Isaiah wall?
the curved steps that go around.
Is there a walkthrough of it?
I mean,
Like a video?
there is.
No, not.
Yeah, no, on Street View.
Oh,
Yeah, you can count them on Street View.
but where's
Oh,
this tree? The verse literally has branch, roots, and soil in it. Like, if that's not telling me tree,
Oh
then
shit, there's a bunch of steps.
yeah. And I think it even goes like up and then cuts back to the right. And I mean, there's a lot of steps. The tree that was there was not an old tree. If I'm remembering correctly, please forgive me. This was like 3 or 4 years ago, but from what I remember, it was not an old tree. But I do remember that there were like visible roots on the ground, like where roots grow down and then they grow back up, or rain washes dirt away. But that would make things more difficult. So for digging.
The subway's there. Is there a possible subway stop type of deal?
I don't know. What subway is it? It's just the 42nd Street station.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
We succeeded.
What did we do?
Gavin Jones just said, "Can I applaud the push and pull of this conversation in a civil way? If only Facebook groups were like this, there would be more solved." There, that was the goal.
That was the
stay
goal.
on topic and have a civilized conversation and explore an idea. Hey,
Especially one that none of us agreed with.
yeah. And we all learned a couple of things today. It was great.
Yeah.
This is what I love.
Like, I mean, I don't think this conversation is going to be groundbreaking for the puzzle as a whole. Like, although I think this end location is very, very compelling, absent of a couple of problems. But I think we fulfilled our goal.
Well, that's why you have a community. One idea comes up, it gets shared to another person, the next person runs with it and finds something else. Like we have to build together.
I can't get over it, man. That the park, the naming, all of this is really, really, really coincidental. Though there are still a lot of people in the comments just telling us their ideas.
On those windows, I remember somebody comparing them to, was it Lincoln Center? Which is nowhere near there, but the arched windows of Lincoln Center. That's up by Columbus Circle, though. That's not really near there.
Kelsey Duffy asked if we're going to talk about any other theories. I don't know. It's a fluid conversation. No,
it's not.
If you want to talk about other theories, set up a date and we'll talk about them on Sunday Funday.
Minimal tangents. We can refer to them briefly and then back on topic.
Just because I'm curious, for the three of us that are here right now, where are you actually looking vaguely in New York? Because I'm more of a Coney Island guy.
Brooklyn.
And you're not really looking, right?
I'm working on the entirety of this.
Got it.
If I had to put money on a location, then I kind of like the area close to kind of John Paul Jones Park by the bridge.
Oh,
that's sure.
Here's an idea.
Bay Ridge South.
Rob, what do you think about this? So take twice as many steps as the hour is one branch of them. Look for one branch of them. Let's put that one branch in the middle of the V into perspective at these steps. Imagine, because if you looked at Street View, you see the steps go up and around the wall and then get to a point and then cut immediately back to the right. What if that is your V? And the one
You'd
branch,
have to have someplace to dig. I mean, the one branch would be the staircase, the curved staircase side where that planter
is the only place you could look down.
There's nothing else.
No, yeah, that would make sense for that. From one branch of the V, it's the only branch.
So,
and you would be in the middle.
We're talking pairs. We're talking bookends. Do you believe San Francisco and New York have anything to share other than the fact that one is first and one is last, and they're shaped together? Do you feel like there's gateways, gateway to the West, immigration, gateway New York?
I mean,
possibly. The question is, are there deeper shared themes? And if there's shared themes, does that mean that there's shared methods of solve?
I think there is an intended. I think Byron intended for these two to be similar in some way, but I don't know if that was successfully illustrated. I don't know if we'll ever figure out what that is. I don't think it's directly related to how either of them are solved.
So the reason I say that is because this one was done in 81. It was obviously started very early on.
He
didn't do the painting. He didn't do all the paintings in 81. So this
was
one
at least dated.
It has a date of 81. San Francisco has a date of 81. So my suggestion is just that if there is themes shared as bookends, would he have also thought at that point, since this was a very early concept for him, that, hey, let's maybe be clever about sharing the methodology?
I don't know. Are there any hotels nearby?
Planter boxes?
Well, the planter box would make sense, right?
I don't see, I don't know if, because you start talking about like very in-depth and technical ways of putting a puzzle together, and then you have to compare that with how non-technical the stuff we know has been, or how
we don't know.
Error prone.
Maybe a fourth one will give us that
maybe
methodology.
But we said that when there were two. Maybe a third will illustrate more.
Well, three would be. You can still not come across a pair. I'm just saying in terms of the structure, if it seems that he created San Francisco and New York on the onset, and he was developing the painting and getting whatever, he knew New York was going to be a location, and that painting obviously has an 81 on the signature, so it may have been finished last because there were things finalized. But conceptually, if he was working that, hey, these are bookends, we're doing similar immigration, Angel Island, Ellis Island, they look similar, they have a woman that looks very similar. The New York is kind of showing black locks behind the Statue of Liberty. So there's definite visual, shared visuals. I'm just saying, is it possible?
I could get behind things changing towards the end, and I can get, yes, it's possible. And the evidence that you have for, if this were to have changed in the end, right? Like if he were to started this painting in 1981 and finished it last, right? Because Byron put off the dig spot or whatever, something had to change at the end. I could buy that just looking at the painting, because if you look at the dots in the painting, there's something was painted behind those. There's something in the background that the tape that was used to section that window off, yeah. It cuts off shit that's painted behind it. It cuts off bubbles. It cuts off. There are other sections of the painting that were squared off that are not taped off, like the Statue of Liberty's hair has that blue outline where a box should be, but there is not one. There's stuff like, if you look at the finished painting, the photos of the finished painting, where there's just white globs of nothing, there's shit behind that. You can see things behind it. So I could see, like, they started, like, if we were putting this in the context of these steps, I could see that they picked a location in 80, 81 or whatever, and started working towards that location for New York. And then these steps got dedicated in 81 and they changed it and they had to reformat for this specific location instead of another. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I could see it in that context. So is there a similarity in the way they're solved? I don't know. If there is, if it's similar to San Francisco, it has to be way more direct than people are making it. It has to be words on signs. You know, it has to be stuff like education, justice, Sanford Court. It has to be stuff like that.
And that's not one of the ones that you believed was reworked. There's discussion about there was one image that he had already done that he rehashed and touched up and made it into one of the 12.
I don't think so.
That's not,
I think
that wasn't New York.
I think given everything that I know about the puzzle, or not the puzzle, but the paintings, like having seen the paintings, there's only really two that I could think of that he would pull from his personal, because he said it was a personal painting that Byron said, let's use this one for the book, right? There's only two that I can think of. There's Milwaukee, because Milwaukee's style does not at all fit with the rest of the paintings for this book, but it absolutely fits with his personal style of paintings. You could take the Milwaukee painting and put it up next to Ecstasis or Ghost Punch or any of his personal fine art
Single
paintings.
figure stark
It
background.
would fit. Yeah, it would fit. Weird fucking shape. Like there was another painting that someone posted on Facebook that's almost, it was a personal painting of his that's almost exactly like Montreal. Milwaukee. It's just a guy with his hands weird with shit floating around him. And you know what I'm saying? It's almost exactly like that. So I could see Milwaukee because of that reason, or I could see Boston because we have an example of it before it was in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We have an example of it minus a bunch of clues, you know? So that could have been something that Byron was like, we're going to make a treasure hunt book. So he just painted some shit, you know, or I don't know. And then they were like, let's work clues into it. Maybe it was paint a book cover. So he painted that. And then they were like, well, we're running out of time. We're down a painting. Let's just use the book cover and put some more stuff in it. Who knows? Those are the only two I can think of.
I got to bail. It's late. I'm going to head out. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
So good to see you, Chris.
Catch you
Nice
later.
chat.
Yeah.
We're going. Do you guys all want to leave, or are we staying on and talking? I don't know if anybody's. I could do this shit all night. I don't care. It's Memorial Day tomorrow. I got a day off.
Oh,
I got to get up late tomorrow. I got to get up at 7.
Oh, you want to go? I mean, we've been at this for a
I
while.
usually get up at 5, so I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. You guys got a busy day tomorrow.
We're closed.
Are you? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good to give your employees a day off.
Yeah. It's okay.
Graydon's just like, it's
Graydon.
Monday. I gotta
Do you
teach
get off?
school.
Do you set? It's not a holiday for you guys, is it?
No, this past Monday was
When's the end of school for you guys? When's summer start?
June 30th.
Oh,
Holy cow!
God.
Yeah.
Jason gets out at the end of next week.
Yeah. That's
So I told you
July.
I'm going to Montreal. Got a trip planned, so it's the first time I've ever
Nice.
been there.
Yeah, we're
And
thinking
going
about
to
going
Milwaukee.
next year.
I got my son's in Milwaukee. I'm going to be going to Milwaukee in 2 weeks.
awesome.
Yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
spend some time. If anybody's got any suggestions for me,
I have a request for you if you go to Milwaukee. This is a shit story I'm about to tell you. It's a really shit story. When John died, we all went to his funeral, me, Bradley, Rob, and a couple other people that were friends with John. And we all went to John's spot in Milwaukee and we buried some stuff just sort of in remembrance of John. And I told that story on one of the Sunday Fundays, and somebody went behind us and dug it all up.
fuck.
And then they told me they did it. That was the shitty thing, because like
who is that person? They need to be doxxed.
I'm not saying.
That's
but
crazy.
they were in the middle of a story, and they were talking about things that they had dug up, and they were like, oh yeah, and I dug up this little figure, and I dug up this blah blah blah, and it was a little toy, and then I think I dug up someone's tribute to, and then they realized who they were talking to, right? And you could tell their tone was changing, and they were like, and it was a little key and some. I was like, motherfucker. So, can I send you some stuff to put in John's spot? If you go back to
you
Milwaukee?
want me to dig a hole?
No, you don't have to dig a hole. It's very small. You just push it in the ground. Just replace what was taken.
So
I've got.
Can I ask where Renner dug was the southernmost lion, correct?
Yeah, I think so. It's if you walk past the North Point Lighthouse, and you've got the 4 lions in front of you, that bridge, it was the farthest lion on your left.
Okay.
Closest. It was the closest lion to the water.
Right. And so the one, you're gonna have to tell me where the other spot for JM was.
Closest, the lion that was closest to the lighthouse.
Lighthouse, right at the lighthouse entrance on the left.
Yeah.
That's the one that's been dug to shit though, hasn't it?
Only by John. I don't think anybody else digs that one.
No, I thought people dug that.
I think John. Well, I mean, John posted a big ass hole. John dug a huge hole and he posted it online. And I think after he did that, the people in Montreal or in Milwaukee stopped digging there because they were like, I mean, there's a big, huge hole. It's not there. So I don't know. At least that was the last I heard of anybody digging there.
Maybe you can do a Google marker pin drop or something like that. That'll last.
Yeah, I might do that. I mean, we got the bench too. I think it was just like, it was something we all came to do after his funeral. And then it was like, you dug it up. That was shitty. It was just a shitty thing.
They should put it back if they still have it.
Did the bench get fixed? Didn't something shitty happen with the bench where someone stripped and stained it or something?
The one in Cherokee Park, somebody stained it black and then covered it with polyurethane. No, as far as I know, that never got fixed.
I just remember you saying someone did something to a bench, and you were like, I remember you saying, dude, like that type of
bench you have to oil. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wood in it, you can't polyurethane because it just, all it'll do is like, so it retains a certain amount of oil and moisture, and all that will happen is the sun will beat down on that black stain, heat up inside the polyurethane, and just crack all the polyurethane off, and it'll just look like shit. And they come by and oil those every single year to keep them, hardened.
No.
And with polyurethane on it, they can't oil it.
Yeah. So to put down a Google marker, do you have to be on the spot?
No.
You could just do it from anywhere?
I think so.
I mean, a pin is one thing, but the sphere,
the photosphere, you have to be there.
Yeah.
You have to take a photosphere.
Right,
I don't know. I gotta go back to Milwaukee. I'll probably
let me know. Anyway, I'm gonna be there. I had some ideas, but
you said you're going in June?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're planning a trip, but next year, I think.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Montreal's the only city I haven't been to.
You're planning a trip to Montreal?
Yeah, next year. Rachel's gotten in her head, this cruise thing that we do, she really likes. So she's got in her head that she's made a lot of actual outside of the secret friends from The Secret. A lot of searchers, they become friends outside of this. So she's gotten in her head that every year she wants to take a group vacation with all of her friends. So we did the cruise 2 years ago, and we went to New Orleans this year, and then we're doing the cruise this year, and then next year she wants to do Montreal and
just up to St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence.
What isn't it? No, what is that?
They're not going for a cruise, Rob.
We're not going for a cruise. We're flying.
What I'm saying is there might be like a river cruise that you could do through there.
Maybe. I don't know. I would rather fly. Just fly.
But you're on a boat. Things are taken care of for you. You just,
George,
when you walk around
when you know when you're going, let me.
I'll let you know.
I have many reasons to go. Montreal's a long way, but I have I need a reason to go. I've got friends there, and
I'll let you know. It's good. We're gonna plan it like a year
3
out.
days in July.
Okay.
Are you gonna go stay at the club, or where are you staying?
I haven't planned.
Oh.
My buddy's daughter's getting married, and so that's in Vermont, and so we're going to drive.
Oh,
for 3 days.
What general area do you like in Montreal? Are you like the Mount Royal guy, or
no? I don't really have any. I'm not. It's not my wheelhouse. So I'm open to anything. Originally, when I first started looking, I was that. What was that? The monument that's on the north side of the Mount
Stephen or Mount Royal.
Yeah,
I don't know much about.
There's a monument. I forget what it's called. And there's stones. Let me look it up. But I really don't.
Someone says the George Etienne, whoever Cartier monument.
Cartier. Yeah, that's it.
I was doing research in Montreal a year or so ago, because I know everybody stopped looking at the Mount Stevens Club because of all the construction. So I started looking into the construction, and it doesn't look like they removed any dirt. Like all the construction pictures that I can see, it doesn't look like they removed any dirt from that lawn. They just moved shit around. Or at least not much. Aside from like right at the side of the wall, that looks like they removed some dirt there, but the building wall, not the outside wall. Anyway, are people still watching this? Yeah, they are. Okay.
Wake up.
We got like 50 viewers on YouTube and like 16 to 20 on Facebook. So there you go.
Well, I'm sure most people watch later on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Chris told me the pro tip for it was to watch later, but to change the playback speed to 1.5, and it cuts out all of the
That's what they do for NFL games. Cut all the shit between the next day. Excuse me.
Andy Collins.
What are we gonna tell Andy? What's the final resolution?
Oh, he doesn't even like this spot anymore. Andy.
Oh. Did he dig
he's in Coney Island. No, Andy's not a digger. He's an attorney. If he gets in trouble, it's real trouble. I mean, he is a digger in that he dug up a cask, but like he did that with a bunch of people on site. So no, he just like when he walked me through this, I was just like, there's a lot of good stuff here. There's some really bad stuff, but there's a lot of good. Like it's just always been on my brain that some of these are just too coincidental. You know, it's a lot like Boston, like that park.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coincidence. And then a lot of the shit, the verse just doesn't make any sense. Like Green Tower of Lights doesn't make any sense. 5 steps doesn't make any sense, but it's right.
Yeah.
But no, he's in Coney Island with basically everybody else. 50% of New York searchers.
Yeah, I once had we were talking about Asher Levy Park. That was a good spot.
There is no clue in New York that's more perfect, has a more perfect answer than Whirring Sound and Cyclone. To me, that's just perfect.
But that's not a man-powered.
No, but it is in summer.
Perfect.
But it is in summer.
Mm-mm.
It's the most perfect. All of the other ones are just kind of bullshit. Like, oh, it's people riding bikes. Like people stop riding bikes in December, in New York. People ride bikes when it's snowing. They don't care. That's how they get around.
Summertime.
They still ride bikes in the winter, but the Cyclone only runs in the summer.
And they had the clock that was matched there from the Nathan's Hot Dogs. It was
it wasn't a great match, but it was a good match. And then there was
the Roman numerals on it.
Yeah, but the granite background and all that other stuff. It wasn't, from what I remember, it was just a square clock with decent match for Roman numerals. And then there was the steps. It was not Luna Park. It was where the Wonder Wheel is. They've got these like painted footprints that lead you to the Wonder Wheel.
By the zoo or the aquarium?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not by the aquarium. I mean, it's relatively by the aquarium in that all those parks are by the aquarium.
Yeah, that was a scary place in the 80s. That was like you'd go to buy your drugs.
To Coney Island?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're the Warriors.
I knew a guy there.
But there was like, I remember there was a bunch of footprints painted. So you just count the path, 21 steps. It leads you below this, like, it leads you down below a path that's above you. There's like an footpath over you. So you go into like a tunnel and then you come out where the Wonder Wheel is. And then you ultimately go under this gigantic Cyclops, which is not gray. It's green. But
the elephant was in that location around there too. So
somewhere right down the road. Yeah.
Colossus, whatever it was.
A lot of coincidental stuff for Coney Island too.
There's coincidental stuff everywhere. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But I think this is one case where you can use the Rob scale. Some coincidences are better than others.
What is that?
I think in this situation you can use the Rob scale, wherein some coincidences are better than others.
Rob security.
Whatever. It's the Rob scale. And I don't understand why good is 1 and bad is 10. That doesn't make any sense. It's all backwards.
It's how obscure something is. If it's a lot obscure, it's on the 10. Correct?
All right. Whatever.
It's an obscurity scale, not a not obscurity scale.
Well, as the leader of the secret, it's the Rob scale and it's backward. No, I'm just kidding. So the Rob Security scale. I mean,
by the way, we're still missing our very obvious 1-to-1 JJP says that we're missing in the images.
Yeah,
that haven't been seen.
I have no idea.
It's got to be something super obvious, right? It's got to be something blatant in our face.
You would think, but he also thinks Boston is obvious. Like he thought Boston was obvious. But
do you think it's something landmark?
I think it's going to be something on site. It's going to be something like a leg eater. It's going to be something that we probably think is something else. And then you're going to see it and go, holy shit.
I thought he said it was big.
What does San Francisco have that's a big landmark? Like that's present in the image?
Golden Gate Park.
But that's not a building.
But it's a landmark. I mean, what else you've got the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. That's it for San Francisco. Maybe Sutro Tower. But that's just a tower. Like
that's not in the image though, is it?
No. I'm saying, what else could you pick from in San Francisco other than Golden Gate Park? You've got maybe 3 things that are.
So it's not San Francisco.
Yeah. It's in Calabasas or wherever.
I'm still not convinced that it's not something that we already know about.
It could be because he doesn't know
how he would know. There's no way he would know what we know.
I mean, the only way he gets information about this stuff is occasionally he watches these videos. And I know that because he's called me out on a couple of, he messaged me on an email the other day and he was like, I saw one of your videos uploaded and you're getting cheekbones now. You're losing weight. Good job. I was like, what the fuck? That's a strange comment, but thanks, John, I guess. So I know he watches these videos sometimes, but the only other way he would know is if I said something, and I don't say that much. That's like my general rule. bring up the secret.
I think he should make a secret profile, and he should troll the comments.
I've told him to do that. he did it. He did it in Quest for Treasure. He had an account on Quest for Treasure.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
he used to. This was way before Expedition Unknown, though. He used to keep up with what was going on.
So he definitely has an alternate profile on this page. Then I know you can't say, but
no, he hates something happened in the past 10 years, and he hates technology. He won't use anything from Google. He won't plug in any external device. It's weird. So I doubt he's been on Facebook. Although his wife is on Facebook, so he might just grab her phone and take a look.
And we know Kit's on it too. So
yeah,
I would just love to have somebody trolling, just making stupid comments, and then knowing it was one of them.
Well, there is the gift giver. So
what have we learned from the gift giver in 3 years? Nothing. Drives me crazy.
I don't think those posts are meant for us. I don't think they're meant for us.
Who are they meant for?
Intricate and
cryptic. I don't think they are. I think the first one was.
The first one was
definitely. The first one was. I think the gift giver posts were like, all right, let me give you a hint, and then they saw that just was too obscure, so they progressively got to the point where they were like, the cities are correct. Here's a list of them.
Sure,
the next one.
But we still have learned nothing from the first one. No one has figured that out.
No, I really reading it. I really think it was a way of saying you're looking at the paintings wrong. You're looking.
It's a weather vane. It's a weather vane was the takeaway. The arms moving, the whirling dervishes, the movement of the figure.
That was what people took away from it?
That's what I figured the whole point of saying that it's a whirling dervish. They were moving around. The whirling dervishes, they're spinning. So it was about spinning.
Well, isn't a Quintain a better match for that then, considering the theme?
Well, that along with JJP saying that it was a weather vane or alluding to it in one of the interviews.
Well, it's something with math too, and I don't know. I really thought the point of that post was you're looking at these images wrong. You're looking for direct one-to-one matches when you should be looking at what the painting's trying to tell you, which kind of like the Boston Pops or Boston Globe kind of thing. Instead of looking for what these things physically represent, look at what the painting's trying to tell you. That was the whole thing with the how would you know it was a pea if there wasn't a spoon? Context. It would just be a green. It would just be a green dot. And then,
yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in. I mentioned this a few times already that, there are metaphors and things being referenced in how and what he draws, like the shadows on one side of her. Why are there shadows over there? Why is the physical attributes and metaphors that he's using in the painting mean things?
Yeah. Literally. And he's a classically trained artist that draws inspiration from very specific people, and those people have symbolism that we understand. Right. So I really think in order to understand his symbolism, you have to understand theirs. Dali really liked bringing up spoons. Dali really liked spoons, but he used them to illustrate youth and powerlessness. Your mother has to feed you out of a spoon, you're too innocent to use a fork, so you use a spoon, that kind of thing. I think we have to remember that he's a surrealist painter, and we have to sort of look at these things, take elements from them and figure out what the elements are representing. I don't know. At least that's what I think the first.
But there was also very specific things in that too. Yes, I could see big picture. He was trying to suggest that we look at the paintings metaphorically, but then there was also very.
Do we have a list of gift givers?
Should you take one from the left and move it to the right, or one from the right to the left? How would you know which is right? I
think that was a very direct. You should do this. I can't see any other reason, but we don't know what it is. Let me go see if I can find, because I don't remember.
I'm a firm believer that the folds for that, because you're bringing the left to the right. You're moving the image physically, meeting the right hand is meeting the left hand.
Yeah. You think it's like a mad fold-in kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done posts on that before,
Yeah.
and you can actually see when you fold it and you hold it like this, you look down at it, you can actually see a shovel in a face.
I mean, did it not say something about taking something from one side? I'm pulling up the gift giver codes because I don't care about them as much.
Yeah,
as
plus and minus. It was plus and minus, and
Yeah.
adding something and subtracting from the other, taking or giving away, I think is exact wording. Or
let's see, I got the Whirling Dervishes post. Not too long ago, I was watching a film which featured whirling dervishes. In the scene, the Sufi had one hand pointing to the sky, accepting something from God, one hand pointing to the earth, giving something back. For a brief second, I was reminded of the Roanoke painting. So that makes sense with adding and subtracting. The painting seems to involve parallels, doesn't it? One side matching the other, but not exactly. Left hand accepting, right hand releasing. So that should be telling you which to add and which to subtract from.
Well, the parallels also lead you to the folds because there's symmetry on both sides of the window, not just the windows.
Yes.
Okay.
Is something wrong?
I gotta do your laundry, so I'm gonna put it on top of your dresser for now.
Okay.
You're gonna get yelled at. I'm gonna get yelled at because it's wrinkly.
Okay.
You need clean underwear.
For days, because there's your opportunity for it to hang up, and you can't do it.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.
She can't hang up my clothes. That's so sad.
You need clean underwear.
I have that. That's fine.
So is that maybe a little imposing question? Does she fold your underwear, or does she just
No, God, she barely folds actual clothes. That's fine. It's fine. Like, I'll pull out a shirt. You have no idea. I'll pull out a shirt from my closet. It's so wrinkled. And I'm like, I got to go to work and meet like a warden today. Got to wear this. Okay. I actually bought a dryer that has this thing called Steam Refresh, which releases wrinkles. It's great. Anyway, what were we saying?
Yeah, okay, so the parallels, the parallels for the image are, there's a definite symmetry and vertical lines that when you do the folds, you have to match up those verticals.
Yeah. Why does the right hand have a string with nothing attached? Why is the left holding a watch? Should you add something to the right? Should you remove something from the left? That seems to be like an instruction. That's what you should do.
I always thought that's a way to create the rebus. That's what I've always thought that is.
Is it the reverse? How would you know? Maybe there are instructions in the painting, perhaps a plus and minus sign somewhere, which we know there are on the armor. Are you looking at the paintings correctly? Is anyone? I don't remember exactly what John and Byron were going for. Maybe you can help fill in the blanks. Merry Christmas. See you next year. Yeah, that seems to me to be direct. You just don't like it's direct instruction that we have no idea how to use. It doesn't seem to be vague. It doesn't seem to be.
No, there's this big hint to the entire community that's been 3 years and no one knows what it is.
Well, I think it if you think about the one arm raising up to God and one hand down, that's this windmill or quintain.
Well, in the painting,
twisting, or is he tilting?
In the painting, there is one hand accepting something or grabbing something and one hand releasing something. The releasing something is on the positive side. The grabbing is on the negative. So if you subtract the watch and add it to what does it give? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Catching and throwing.
But like
maybe
the shape of the objects, it's just this in Milwaukee that have objects arranged so literally like circle. That. Like, how is it not a rebus? There's empty bubbles. We need to move an object into an empty bubble to create a it's got to be like.
I mean, who was it that came up with the mantio, the man in the shape of a T with an O?
Yeah. Well, there's also round one O key, which kind of came from
Brian.
What Brian riffed out on the episode.
What was the next gift giver? The next one was like, here's a list of the cities.
No,
No,
that
there
was
was
the
in
third
between
one.
that. There was the P
Yeah,
with the context.
yeah.
Was there? That was so December 21st, 2021. Oh, these just aren't listed in order.
The plus and minus also were like the battery.
Oh no, they are. Okay, yeah, so it was September, and then the P one came after. It was like, here's a list of the cities, and then December 25th on
The
Christmas
P one came
in
after that.
2022. In order for an artist to get a message across, the art must have a subject as well as other elements to give that subject context. For instance, if an artist wanted to illustrate a P, he could simply paint a green sphere, but how would you know it's a P and not a simple green circle? Perhaps the artist could add a spoon as context, which begs the question, what is the most important part of that message, the subject or the context? Which is confusing as shit. I mean, like, I get what it's trying to say.
To me, that's just saying we need to pay attention to what these metaphors and symbols are in the images. We're just finding matches, and that's
or you need to figure out what the important part is and what is just there. Like, you could be focusing on 100 different things where only 10 of them are important, you know, and the rest are providing context for that 10 to make that 10 stand out.
So what did Chicago give us?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
As far as symbols and imagery and metaphors for what was there an
symbols,
action?
images, and metaphors? Not a lot, but there's a lot of shit in that painting that doesn't matter. That's just context for other things. There's, you know, there's an entire building which doesn't make sense except that it is a place to place clues where they look appealing, you know,
right?
Where even still people focus on the minute details of that building, that castle on his hat, where none of that shit matters. It's just an appealing place to place the clues that are necessary.
It's amidst the city.
What did you think of the Chris and John and Phil's group's interpretation of like Ulysses in the Chicago painting? Are you a subscriber to that?
I don't remember it.
The archer, the legend of him shooting the arrow through the spears. And if you look through the painting, there's all the archer and the arrows going through the circles. Tying it to, they tied that to
how is that tied to Grant?
Because it's tied to the story of Ulysses.
Oh, Ulysses. Oh, right.
Ulysses S. Grant, and also Ulysses, James Joyce, and the that was a good immigration group.
If you were to tell me that was something John came up with, I would buy it. If you were to tell me that was something Byron came up with, I wouldn't, because I think John puts that much thought into his art.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's something Byron would put that much thought into in his story. Like, I don't think Byron would have structured the Chicago painting that way. But I feel like if John knew that he had to get Grant across to you, that would be a way he would do it.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, is that a methodology that we should then use for other ones, that we should have a park name?
No, that's the thing. Like,
why are we giving Grant then?
Because that's in this puzzle. Like, so think about everything that John's ever publicly said about the way he worked with Byron. He's always said it's been a fluid thing, that none of them were really the same because they came up with new shit as they went along. Right. So I don't really think there's going to be any grand way that spreads across all of these paintings to solve any specific clue.
No, it doesn't have to be all.
I mean, it could be a couple. Like, I really like the Lions Club in Roanoke, to give you the Lions Club Park. I mean, it could be a method. But I think the Lions Club is simpler than Grant, but
it could be kind of like Houston, like just a way of, if the park is named for someone, then they found clever ways to refer to that name. In other, like the Herman Melville quote.
Yeah.
If you tie that to Herman Park in Houston, it's a way of getting you a clue to a name that you can then transfer to a location.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's something we could add to our columns. Because like, I mean, if you're depending on how far you're willing to stretch it, you've got the Centaur for Greek, you've got the Greek cultural gardens. I don't know how you would do Pupilo or Langon, unless you use.
Isn't there the polo popping the bubble in the polo club? The bird is popping the bubble.
That's supposed to be the Boston Pops.
No, but it could also be a rebus for. I've seen people say that to suggest it's a rebus for polo.
Yeah, I'm pretty well having talked to John a couple of times about Boston, publicly and preparing him to talk publicly. I'm pretty comfortable saying we know everything there is to know about that painting. Everything he intended to put in that painting, we know. There's nothing really else. I think he wouldn't mention the numbers because he didn't. He wasn't fully comfortable that we knew latitude and longitude coordinates. And I think that changed in the last interview when we were talking about like how long it took. I think he was fully comfortable knowing that we knew that then. I think we know everything there is to know about that. I don't think there's anything left, but that's just my opinion.
That would be the only way that you would
get to Pupilo Park.
Pupilo. It's a possibility.
I mean, unless it was like,
not saying it's in every puzzle either. So
yeah,
unless he wasn't necessarily naming out, like calling out the park, but calling out something right next to the park that you can't miss the park for the USS Constitution, for instance. So he spent so much time on portholes that aren't even in the fucking boat to get you to the Constitution. Or Byron was like, put the boat in the painting. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's not just let's directly call out the end location.
Especially when you face north, standing on home, it's right there in front of you.
Yeah. So maybe that, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other examples. Like how would you get to Lake Park?
Well, is it in Lake Park?
I mean, if those lions are important for some reason, you'd have to be pretty close to those lions. I mean, people can argue about what John meant when he said that Josh Gates was closer than he's ever been before, but I take that to mean he was pretty freaking close. So it's got to be somewhere around there. I mean, the only other argument I've ever heard for that is, oh, he wasn't looking for one before, so anywhere he was really close or closer than he'd ever been. But that doesn't make any sense.
I'm running out of battery.
Do you want to go? We can do this again some other time.
Yeah, let's pick another topic.
That'd be great.
Okay. Let's pick a topic some of us actually agree on. Or not agree on, but let's do something that we don't mind.
What do you think about going through some passage links?
I'm bad with that, but let's see if Chris wants to do it too. Graydon, do you want to do it?
I'm game to chat anything secret anytime, as long as I'm free.
All right. Let me put a messaging group together with all of us and see if Chris has time and we can all do it.
What does he like about the passage? I mean,
he just knows everything there is to know about it. He knows
all of that front of that book stuff inside.
Yeah,
I'll send you both some images of things that I think are interesting.
Oh, we're talking about visual clues in the passage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And both, actually.
Okay, because he's a word guy. He can give you links to all kinds of shit. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up with. Well, it was like I told Graydon, I was like, sometimes when we do Sunday Fundays, I know, like, because I have really bad ADD and I get off topic and I lose focus. And I know that sometimes when I'm on Sunday Funday, I don't have to take like Adderall because I know that this conversation, I'll be fine. Right. But when certain people come on like Graydon or Chris, I got to take my Adderall because I got to pay attention. So, yeah, he's difficult to keep up with.
In a good way.
In a good way.
In a very good way.
Well, hopefully you get some sleep.
Yeah.
Good work, deal.
Thank you. All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right. Thanks, George. Graydon, good talking with you, buddy.
Good to see you again, Rob. Yeah.